This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
Wrong! If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity!
Russ Wakeland. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Teras Cassidy in the third chair.
Hey, wait! Where's Garrett?
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listener.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, command at the speed of an artificially constructed anthropomorphic being powered by the name of God and with unlimited action cooldowns.
Yeah.
Today's edition is brought to you by all of our fine patrons over at Patreon, including Rick Underwood, Donnie Williams, Christopher Sneezak, John from Arizona, and Andrew Delaney. Thanks to you guys and for everyone who's supporting the show and what we do. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today our panelists are Russ Web Golem Wakeland and the guru of geekly getaways, Teras Coral Golem Cassidy. Let's begin. Issue number 1. Urban sprawl or suburban sprawl describes the expansion of human population away from central urban areas into previously remote and rural areas. In convention planning, organizers are often plagued by the success of their events, requiring an expansion of space or facilities to accommodate growing attendance rates. A truly successful convention can soon be a victim of their own success through lack of planning or foresight. Question. In 2003, GenCon moved to Indianapolis in an attempt to keep ahead of the ever-growing attendance numbers. What state did it move out of? James Roos Russ.
Milwaukee. That's not a state. But it's close enough.
And Bruno taught Teras.
I was going to say Milwaukee too, but I'm from Canada.
And here goes. This was going to be a gimme. For those listening at home, we did just record the Garrett Wang bit where he actually mentions that it was Milwaukee. I mean, it was Wisconsin, but yeah, no, I'm not going to give you any points. So you're both wrong. Issue number 2. In Jewish folklore, a golem is an animated anthropomorphic being magically created entirely from inanimate matter. Although stories differ on how the being is infused with life or controlled once it animates, the constructs are always made from inanimate matter and are always incapable of speech. Question. What medieval city hosts the most famous tale of a golem? Rag Golem Russ.
Jerusalem.
Twine Golem Teras.
Transylvania.
Wrong! Prague in the Czech Republic, I think, this week. Although I would also accept Chaum in Poland, the home of the first medieval golem story. Issue number 3. Cosplay, short for costume play, is a performance art in which participants, called cosplayers, wear costumes and fashion accessories to represent a specific character or idea that is usually identified with a unique name. A broader use of the term cosplay applies to any costumed roleplay in venues apart from the stage, regardless of the cultural context. Question. What city hosts the event with the most cosplay involvement each year? Hint. It is held twice a year in the summer and the winter. J. Maynard Russ.
Ooh. It's not Dragon Con, but, Comic-Con.
Lee Tangway Terrace.
Tokyo.
Oh, that is, we're going to go to the judges.
Anime Festival.
Sorry, the judges say wrong. It's called Comiket, otherwise known as the Comic Market. The world's largest fair, I'm pretty sure I pronounced that correctly, held twice a year in Tokyo, Japan. Nearly 600,000 people attended the 2014 summer fair.
Wow.
Putting Dragon Con and SDCC to shame. Issue number 4. As computers become more and more central to our lives, they infiltrate themselves into every aspect of our daily existence. Computers and personal devices are used to enhance nearly every activity, from work to entertainment to gaming and beyond. Question. With the current trend to digitally enhance our board and miniature games, what was the first ever digitally enhanced game in history? Dennis Ritchie Russ.
Ooh. Wizard Tower?
Alan Turing Terrace.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Wrong! A little-known one game called Quad Tempest Est was a very popular game in 208 BCE in which numbered tiles were used to put different times together for various events such as feeding Christians to lions, building lead-lined plumbing systems, school, healthcare systems, and gladiatorial combat. Leo li omni suo eu. That's it for now. Thanks for listening and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level. And by Conquistador Games, focusing on immersive and thematic games. More details at cqgames.com.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Game Salute, publishing awesome tabletop games through the Powered by Game Salute program, supporting independent publishers, stores, and the industry at gamesalute.com. Hello!
Hello!
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to episode 154 of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakelin.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Teras Cassidy.
Hey, Teras! Mr. Geek Nation Tours himself. How's it going, Teras?
It is going awesome. Just about recovered from Gen Con.
Have you now recovered? Now, is this sort of the official end of the tour season for you, or are you just basically back on a plane going somewhere else next month or something?
No. I'm back on the plane, and I'm going all the way around the world.
Where are you going?
Where are you going now?
I fly from here. I fly direct to Glasgow, and then I do my miniature in the UK tour.
Oh, nice!
So we do Scotland, and we do battlefields in Scotland and Scotch distilleries, and then end up at Warhammer World. Yes, and end up at Warhammer World.
Everybody knows nothing goes better than guns and alcohol. This is a known thing. So
Right. And then from there, I fly across to Asia and do my Japan Samurai tour.
Wow.
Wow.
Man.
So not even going home in between.
No, I'm not. Wow. I'm going straight to Asia and then stay a little bit of time in Asia and then Southeast Asia, and then I head off to Japan. Yeah. I'm going to be gone from the family for 41 days.
I was going to say, man, Teras. Do you ever get to sneak your families along on these adventures, or is it pretty much...
I do, yeah. Christine comes to Star Trek Vegas with us all the time. I'll start bringing my daughters. Hopefully I can bring my daughter to Adepticon next year.
Nice.
I mean, Gen Con next year.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later. My kids had a blast at Gen Con, so it was their first year there, and I think your daughter will love it. Here's the thing.
Stay tuned for another episode full of Gen Con goodness.
Yeah, right, exactly. So in today's episode, of course, first of all, Garrett, Ensign Kim himself.
Yes.
He's been kind enough to join us again for a cameo appearance where we're going to talk about Gen Con in general and his impressions in particular. This is his first Gen Con, right?
Yeah,
Terrence?
so we're looking at Gen Con through the eyes of a novice.
Yes. That's right.
Gamer.
His
who
second
just happens to be famous.
Yeah.
His second Gen Con.
That's right.
That was a long, long time ago.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
This is us trying to bring him back into the fold.
Get him back as a gamer, right? Win him back. And then also we're going to review Golem Arcana.
Golem Arcana.
Yeah, that's the one. Teras, did you get a chance to try this game out at Gen Con?
I did not, but I heard a lot about it. A lot of my tour people.
It's the hotness. I got sucked all in, and we'll talk more about that later this episode.
Russ found out that it's dangerous to bring your children.
Yes, it is. Because if they fall in love with the game, you're hard to say no. It's like,
especially when you were like, "Oh, I think I like it."
Especially when you're on the edge.
Oh, Nicole, we have to get it. The girls loved it.
Right. It's a family game. See? Family game.
It goes in a totally different budget bucket.
It does.
This is a perfect thing for me to hear about, because then I can jump on or rather my daughter.
Yes, of course. Yeah, not for you. It's not for me at all, even though it's in my trunk and I went to gaming on Tuesday. This is for the kids. So we're going to talk about that. Now, we just had a contest wrap up, Craig.
Yes, we did.
We'll have the results from that shortly, and we want to thank our friends at Mantic for sending us all those great sprues to give away.
Well, they didn't send us. They're sending them directly to the winners.
That's right, but they sent us some as well.
They sent us a giant box of sprues that were left over from the Gen Con display, which is awesome.
OMG, are they awesome.
It's craziness.
They are fantastic. And, we tweeted some pictures because Craig had a chance to build some of those things.
Yes.
And wow, do they look good. So can't wait. So listen very carefully. Probably next episode we'll have the results of that contest and get you some sprues mailed out.
That's right. And they are awesome sprues for any sci-fi game.
Now, don't also if you want to get more D6 generation, because you find that 4 hours every 2 weeks
is not enough.
Just not enough.
It's not enough.
And what you do is you want to do what, Craig?
Well, if I were you, I would move to New Hampshire, and I would buy a house somewhere between. You don't mean okay.
No,
you mean the Lost Chapters.
Yes.
And the best way for you to get the Lost Chapters would be to become a patron over at Patreon.
That's right.
So go to our website and click on the Patreon link. Or go to Patreon and just search for the D6 Generation. Either way, you're only a few clicks away from seeing Russ and I in living Technicolor. And once again, realize why we do radio.
Exactly right. And in the last chapter, we recorded stuff about GenCon. So
we did.
Kinds of
they
great
were
pieces.
our initial reaction to GenCon only a day after we got home.
Hot. You would have heard about our GenCon adventures mere moments after the con, or maybe a week.
That's right. So, or maybe a week.
Or maybe a week. So what's the time now for, Craig?
Time now for
Achievements in Gaming.
Nice one.
Good timing.
Yeah, nice.
That was a long one.
That was a long one. And Achievements in Gaming is brought to us by Casey Kasem with a long-distance dedication. Huh? Tonight's long-distance dedication is from Becky. Becky writes, Dear D6 Generation, I was really hoping that you could help me. My boyfriend and myself have recently broken up due to mutual concerns. We still have love for each other, and I want to show him how serious I am about keeping our relationship alive. We both lack spontaneity, and I'm hoping you could help me with this. He's always listened to your podcast, and I've always encouraged him to carry out his gaming activities. I was wondering if you still did shout-outs on your show. I know it would be a perfect way to remind him just how much I love him, as he once did a shout-out for me some years back. This might just save our future and our happiness. Well, Becky, here's your long-distance dedication. Thanks for that setup, Casey. Tonight's Achievement in Gaming is indeed brought to us by Becky, whose shout-out says, To my handsome man, Ben Greenman, I hope you are listening and that you hear me. I love you so much. I always have and I always will, even if you did have serious trouble working out which base size to use. I want us to be together again. I miss everything about you, even your little toys. I am stronger now and know we could make things right together and be happy. I knew you were the one from the moment we first sipped champagne on our hill on that cool summer's evening back in June. I want us to be alive like that again. I love you with all my heart. Your Pumpkin XXX. Oh, what a great shout out. Thank you so much, Becky. And Ben, I think you've got a good one there. And so, we should let our guests go first. But first, before we let you go, Teras, just for those who don't know, this song you're about to hear is not an error. That is actually the achievement noise when someone does something of geeky goodness. So, Teras, what have you been playing lately? And I'm sure it's a good bit because you went to Gen Con. So,
That's right. I had tons of good Gen Con goodness. First one we did was Space Cadet Dice Duel by Stronghold Games.
Now, was this with the expansion
in
or without?
Scotty's itself.
Was this with the new expansion or without?
This is without the expansion, and it was a riot.
Yeah.
Yes.
They had a tournament there of how many ships? Wasn't it like they did some mega event with like 40 players or something, like 10 ships? I can't even remember. It was crazy. It was crazy there.
Yeah, Steve was telling us about it. He said they did go crazy with how many ships. And you know what? I mean, that game is so frantic.
It is.
Right. So,
yeah,
it was a great game.
So how was your session?
I bought it.
Yeah, nice.
And I brought it home. And I played with my local group here.
And how did it go over?
Very nice.
Tom's crazy group at John's place. Tom at John's.
Nice.
Should be like a restaurant, really.
It should be something, that's for sure.
Did it go over well? Did everybody like it?
Yeah, everybody loved it. I was great for me to kind of go over and been able to explain it, and it was well received there too.
Nice.
I don't know if there's anybody that played it and didn't like it.
I haven't seen anybody. The only complaint, and it's not really even a complaint, is just like you need a break afterwards because it's so intense.
Very intense. Very intense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody comes out shaking whenever
they're like, "Woo!" You kind of want to play again, but you kind of need to cool down. It's like,
there's a lot going on.
What else you play, Teras?
I played also Rampage just recently.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I also played Seven Wonders recently.
Nice.
That's still making the rounds. That's got good legs for your group, huh?
Yeah, well, there happen to be 7 of us.
Okay, that makes is that a rule? You have to play anytime you have a certain number of players. You have to play a game with that number in the title.
That's right. It must be played with that.
Right.
I did a little bit of role playing at Gen Con, which I'm really happy about.
What'd you play?
I did Starship Troopers, the RPG.
Oh,
Very
nice.
cool.
Was that fun?
Yeah.
How did it go?
It was fun. Yeah, the guy he had us in as a drill sergeant, and he was screaming at us at the very beginning.
Nice.
I think everybody was like really scared of him. It was awesome.
Hey, man,
that was really good.
That's awesome.
And I played 2 sessions of Dark Heresy actually when I was at Gen Con.
Oh, very nice.
Look at you. So that's quite the RPG. I feel I've been, Craig and I think now have had an RPG session at Gen Con the last 3 or 4 times.
Many times.
And I have to say, that really makes it feel like Gen Con, because there's not many conventions where actually do an RPG at them. And since Gen Con's roots, of course, are RPGs, it's really just feels like you're really doing it right if you're playing an RPG there.
Yep.
I have to agree. I think that I think it's almost a break somehow.
It is.
It really does feel that way.
Because it takes you out of the hub. But what's cool about it is every time we play there, we always play with people. We never just play with our local friends. It's always people you don't have access to or you don't see very rarely. So you get a nice long amount of time with people you don't see very often. And it does disengage you completely from the crazy, frenetic con, and you're more in this little pocket of reality for a while. It's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's spectacular that that you don't need an investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just bang you're in there. And you know what? There was this room it was I called the demon room, and I was actually scared for my character for a little while. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't have any investment in this character.
Right.
I'm just sitting down, but I was actually really scared.
A good GM, good GM gets you all immersed. Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Really good. Did True Dungeon.
Yeah. So what did you think of True Dungeon this year? Yeah. What did you think of it this year?
I think it's good. I think it's definitely interesting to see the puzzles again. Like, not to say that they were not new puzzles. Mm-hmm. It's just that I think when you go in there a second time, you've kind of got a different perspective on the whole thing. This was the only second time that I played True Dungeon, so it was a different perspective. It was exciting and new, but a little tinged with a little bit of old at the same time. So I think it was a good experience for sure. You know what though? What I really love is the building your character part at the very beginning.
I know.
Sounds so stupid, but I just really love that part.
Nice.
Yeah. I did the BattleTech pods, which was very
that's always fun.
Yeah.
Craig, did you get to those this year? Did you play in the pods? Or
no, I don't really like it. I'm the only one in our group that doesn't. Okay. They did do a session late at night.
Yeah. Okay.
I did not.
Yeah, our session actually happened right after the Artemis session, which I'll talk about in a couple seconds. And so we did it at 2:30 in the morning.
That is early.
And I killed myself twice.
Well, it's 2:30 a.m. You can be forgiven for that. It's 2:30 in the morning.
That's true.
Right?
I played Artemis, and Craig was able to join us for a little while.
Oh, it was a blast.
It was a blast. It was
now. What role did you play though? That's the important thing. Like, I didn't know you were playing a role until the end when you were explaining that you were actually playing the game with us.
Yeah, I was the admiral, so I saw the invasion take place, and I was assigning sectors for each ship.
So you were like
So just to give you an idea, the crews we can't see the sector that we're fighting in. All we know is like what's within travel distance of us. Teras had the master tactical plot of the entire sector, could see the encroaching alien forces, and was putting our ships, and there were 4 ships. They're putting our ships in the path of the invasion, so that he was like playing a large strategic game while we were playing smaller tactical games that were all tied together. It just sounded so cool.
So Teras, you were like the commander of Wolf 359 there, the big
guy.
That's
what's
awesome.
Really cool about it. I've never had that feel of understanding what the command would do. Like, they don't really care about their crews, right? They just want to stem the invasion, right? And I really got that feel of, okay, I got to put these guys in the front line, and it doesn't really matter what if they really want to go there or not. So it was really great. Sometimes I was putting people in crews of sectors with only 1 or 2 ships, and sometimes there was 12 ships.
So did you repel the invaders? That's the question.
We did. We did
Nice.
very good.
Nice.
I can give you. I'll pull out those stats. I'll give it to you later when we're talking to
Garrett. Okay,
How's
cool.
that?
Sounds good. All right. Awesome.
What else did I do? Oh, I played Giant King of Tokyo.
Oh, Giant King. That
was so much fun.
So now let me ask you this: do you wear a little suit?
No.
Okay.
Although that would be cool. Although I'm not wondering. I'm wondering if you getting into someone else's suit would be okay.
King of Tokyo cosplay.
You need a big condom and then go into the suit.
Oh, see, that might be crossing the line of cosplay. That might not be appropriate cosplay anymore.
We're too far.
Now we've crossed the line, Teras, and thank you for that.
Oops.
I thought Canadians were polite, Craig. What happened here?
I know.
We are general. It's an off day.
Apparently so. So what was it cool? Would you have giant
it was
standees?
super
or something?
fun. You know what? There was a couple kids that wanted to come and play. There was one deaf girl that wanted to come and play. She was signing to me, and I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Do you have any generics?" And the family looked like they didn't. I was pulling out my generics, and everybody else was pulling out their generics trying to get.
Cool.
But she had to take off. She didn't have the time to play, so I was kind of sad. But another 7-year-old came in and played with us, and so there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, maybe 6 of us. Sounds right.
Yep.
And it was fun. I end up killing the 7-year-old though, but
alrighty then.
Again, my
you gotta do what you gotta
politeness
do.
is yet
I like those
against
full-size games. My daughter and I played a full-size game of Suro, which was really a lot of fun too. So yeah, those life-size games are pretty neat. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was, and I loved rolling the big dice. Even though I couldn't get my arms around all the dice at once.
Did you see the full-size Star Trek Catan? That was pretty cool too.
No,
that
would've been awesome.
giant Star Trek Catan was also awesome.
That sounds awesome. See, I missed something.
See, you can't see it all, Teras. You can't. It's GenCon. It's huge.
No, you're right.
Although pictures of Garrett playing, giant Star Trek Catan would have been very good.
Oh, and you know what? There is another one that I played that I really, really enjoyed. I played Space Hulk for the first time.
Oh wow!
Death Angel.
Death Angel. Yeah, right. That's a good game. I like that a lot.
Card version. I really enjoyed it. I played Phil's wrestling, Mexican wrestling game there.
Luchador. Yep.
Yes, I played that. That was a lot of. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. I had a couple beer in me, so that was a lot of fun.
It's more fun than it should be, but it is. It's a lot of fun.
That's right. You're right. What else? I played tons. I played my find, and the one that I really liked the best was Eons.
Ooh, I did not play that. So what was that like?
Yeah, what's that about?
You're a celestial being creating the galaxy.
Ooh, that sounds like a cool concept.
Yeah, you know what? And there's a fusion. You create stars, and there's a fusion a section of the game where you create elements in order to build other stars and planets and stuff like that. It is a cool ass game. It's really very cool.
That sounds awesome.
And so yeah, I recommend highly. It's by the Geek Nation, I believe, and they're Geek Nation Gamers.
I was going to say, is that a sister company?
And your Geek Nation.
Yes, I know. No, I thought we should try to get together. You know,
Right.
But yeah, I really
or
enjoyed
sue
it.
them.
Or sue them.
Yeah, that's right.
It is. This is America.
Right.
I don't know where you are right now.
The Canadians, they play together, but in America, we sue
That's
people.
right. In America, we sue people.
We sue them.
You should get 2/3 of whatever they make.
That's
Geek Nation.
Right.
No, because then it goes the other way.
Well, you must be a
that's
patent.
actually true. Well, yeah. Okay, the first thing you got to do is rush and get a
Get a
trademark.
patent. Get trademark right.
Get a patent. Then come
Retroactive
back.
trademark.
Okay,
Right.
so that's we'll get Rafe working on that.
Yeah, we'll get that on there.
That would be perfect. That would be.
And Rafe will charge you double whatever you're going to make.
I can't recommend this game enough. It was
right, cool.
it was tremendous. It really was. It was, and you can supernova other people's stars and smash their planets, civilization off their planets, and Gamer Nation Studios. Sorry. Sorry. So it's not as close as
Gamer Nation is not as close.
but it's very good.
You just lost another third.
Yeah, that you can't
I know.
sue them now.
Damn it.
Yeah, it's
They've
not
got
really-
the nation part. But
Yes.
that's it. No, I really enjoyed it. It was really good. So
Sounds
Eons,
cool.
yeah, you
Eons,
should
nice.
check that out.
Cool.
And
So is that everything?
think that's it.
That's a pretty big pile there, Teras.
Yeah.
Craig, what
I haven't
about
played that many games?
What about you, Craig? Did you get a lot?
Well, let's see. Before Gen Con,
Yeah.
I got to play Rampage also again
nice.
with my son Reese, and we should say Meeple Source, who is they have a great they're a great company that does all kinds of cool stuff, but they specialize in specialized meeples, and they had a Kickstarter a while ago. They sent us a ton of Luchador meeples and other meeples, and we gave them away like candy all Gen Con. And I gave Reese 2, and we used them in Rampage. He loved them. He put them in the little football stadium.
Nice.
He thought that was great. And then I played Luchador with him again with the little meeples because he loved it. And I was still playing Disc Wars before Gen Con.
Good game.
Then we went to Gen Con, and my first game at Gen Con was Werewolf, finally, with the Geek Nation Tours guys in Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
That was pretty awesome.
We were at like a 4-star restaurant playing Werewolf after hours. You can't get any better than that.
In the back room.
They were very kind to us for how long
They
let
were
us,
awesome.
stay.
That was an awesome. We were in a private room. The plates were 500 degrees. It burnt my mashed potatoes. It was awesome. All across the board awesomeness. Then I went back to the hotel and I played Luchador 2nd edition, which is the one that just got kickstarted. Won't be out for a while, but the Backspindle Games sent us the rules and the cards so we could play it. And boy, when you give those wrestlers their own unique abilities and special combos, it's really, really cool. It really kicks it up a notch. Addresses pretty much. The only person I've ever heard say anything bad about the game is Tom Vassell and my father-in-law.
Yes.
And 2nd edition addresses.
Is that one person?
No, it's not. But that'd be an interesting world to live in.
Separated at birth.
Separated at birth. By about 30 years.
Yeah.
No, but it really addresses everything that, you're just rolling dice. You don't have any choices. You have all kinds of cool choices. It was a lot of fun. I played with a whole bunch of guys from the Geek Nation tour, and that's when I decided as I was walking back to my hotel room that I really need to take notes from now on because I forget everybody's name.
I know.
Except for Phil, but then I've known Phil for like 6 years now. But, okay, so then, as far as playing goes, we played Firefly.
Yes, that was awesome.
Role-playing game, which is what Russ was talking when he said it really feels nice to play a role-playing game at Gen Con, which is awesome. We had a blast. The new game is awesome. I bought it from Myriad Games as soon as I got home. Used my birthday $5 discount. That was awesome. Dean, one of the designers of the game, GM'd it. Dean, you were awesome. It was a blast. Like I said, the night of, I said it was one of my top experiences. It's just a great system and a lot of fun.
You play a character or like a
you
play a character other than the people that are actually
you can do either. In the rule book there's all kinds of templates and there's a whole section of course on character design just like a normal RPG, but they have the stats for they actually have the stats for every character who showed up in the entire TV series.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yep.
Wow.
Including the crew of Serenity, but everybody who had like a speaking role in any episode of Firefly is in there with their full stats and their abilities and everything.
Yep.
Wow, that should be a big list then.
It is a big list. It's about 100 pages. Yeah. They basically have broken down. I'm still not sure I like the way it works, trying to learn the system. But what they've done, they have an entire episode list and a summary of every episode and then an explanation of that episode from the point of view of the game rules.
Right.
So, for instance, in the episode where he's in that duel with Atherton, whatever his name is, they explain exactly how that duel would have played out if you were using the rules to play the role-playing game. And he would be using these skills and rolling these dice versus these skills, rolling these dice. Yeah. And it's a really interesting way to teach the game. I'm not sure if I'm learning it. But what it is an awesome way to like remember the show and get cool ideas.
What's really cool is when Dean was playing with us, the whole everything set up to be like a show episode like this actually breaks called commercial. So you take a commercial break between scenes and
that's awesome.
So it's very much like, so there'll be this moment, it's like, and then Jane falls out of the back hatch, is hanging on by the strap of his rifle. And commercial. Like, oh!
That's awesome.
Or your ship's surrounded by bad guys in commercial. When we come back from break, you're now all in jail. We're like, crap! What happened? So
every Firefly episode is the scripts were all 5-act scripts. And so the book actually explains to you how to set up your adventure as a 5-act adventure and what should happen in the first act and the second act. So it's really cool. And we played characters from the show.
I was Jane
just to make it
baby.
easier. Russ was Jane. I was Wash. Nicole played Zoe, and Bob, a big time listener and super supporter of the show, played Mal.
Yes.
And and Andy played Shepherd Book.
Yep. So it was awesome. It was good.
So we
times.
had an absolute blast. It was great.
Thank
fun.
you, Dean, again. That was awesome.
Yeah. And then the last night we played was actually the first chance I got to sit down with my friends and just play some games. We played Black Fleet.
Aha.
Expect to hear that again because that was a lot of fun. And we played Student Bodies from Smirk and Dagger, which was a blast. Which was everything you would expect from a game that Kurt has put his stamp upon.
Oh, yes.
And of course, it wouldn't be Gen Con if you weren't doing massive vendor demos. And so I did Mars Attacks by Mantic, which I had a blast. It's like Dead Zone Light with a couple different changes. I played Sons of Anarchy by Gale Force 9, which I enjoyed. I'm not I know nothing of the show, but if I had to guess, I would say that they did as good a job with theme as they did with Spartacus and Firefly. Just based on what I saw on the cards and the different locations and the way the game played. So I think that's a no-brainer for any fans of the show Sons of Anarchy. I played a demo of Golem Arcana with the Nerd Herders because Russ had scheduled a session of Golem Arcana with the designer for Sunday morning, and I wasn't going to be there. So unbeknownst to me, Russ was like, oh my God, I love it so much walking by the booth that not only am I going to demo it on my own, I'm going to buy the entire thing. So, so that happened at the same time. I was like, oh, this is a really interesting game. And then what I would say, there's two things for me that were demos that I think are going to be no-brainers when they come out. And that would be Star Wars Armada, which is space combat in the Star Wars universe the way it was meant to be.
Fleet scale, fleet action. Awesome rules. The Star Destroyer is ponderous but ridiculously powerful. The fighters are fragile, but they're flying around. They get them in the right place. You know, they can bullseye a womp rat, whatever. So that was a blast. I can't wait for that to come out. Very disappointed that it wasn't out. And then my surprise hit of the con, which I thought I was going to like, oh, this is going to be awesome, I'm going to buy it. But it's going to be doing a Kickstarter in the next month or so, which was a big disappointment, was Deus Machina by Rogue Heroes, which is
what is that?
Gladiator combat with big giant space age robots.
Nice.
And you build the robot out from scratch at the beginning of the game. And then there's a because it's a Roman theme, of course, there's a treachery element to it. You can bribe people. You can buy walls and gun turrets for the arena so you can kind of customize the arena. You've got all these different guns and weapons. You've got different hard points. You've got dealt. It's all card based. Building the mech is all card based. So you get dealt cards. So every time you play, your mech's going to be totally different based on the cards that you got dealt. Both upgrades to the chassis and weapons that you'll have available to you. So it was really, really cool. And then the combat was fast and quick. Literally played through an entire combat, one-on-one mech. And they say it really shines at 4 people, all free for all with 4, which I can imagine be crazy because getting in somebody's back arc is huge. And I had jump jets because I just happen to have been dealt 2 jump jets. Oh, it was awesome. Nice. So that's on my radar. I really hope that's a successful Kickstarter to the point where they get all the cool stuff that they had. They had all of the, what are they called? The original sculpts. Yeah. What are those called? You know,
sculpts.
The 3-ups?
No, they weren't 3-ups. They were
concepts.
They were tests. Whatever. They were. You know, they had
prototypes.
Prototypes. Yes, right. They had prototypes. Exactly. All professionally painted up and 3D, like resin. Everything was cool and awesomely painted. And if the game does really well in Kickstarter, that's all going to be plastic. It's all going to be awesome. Cool. If not, there's going to be some cardstock stuff, but it's still going to be cool. So that was.
So it's a miniatures based game that
Yes.
is a card game, or is
building the mech is a card game.
Right.
Because you're basically laying out the mech on the table as a sideboard, because that's also how you keep track of damage on your mech. And then you've got your mech, which is a miniature, and then you're playing just like Spartacus, the combat side of Spartacus. It looks very much like that, but in a sci-fi kind of way.
So, and the Kickstarter has yet to happen.
It has yet to happen, yes. So put that on your radar. The Deus Machina Kickstarter by Rogue Heroes, which should be sometime in September or October. And those were the games that I played. And then when we came home yesterday, I played some more Gen Con goodness. I played King of New York, which I said no to and didn't think I would enjoy because I'm not a big fan of King of Tokyo. And King of New York was awesome. So that was great. I loved that. Played Cash and Guns second edition, which I'd never played the first edition. That was a blast.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed that. That was another big Gen Con hit. And then I got another game of Dead Zone in, which is cool because I am putting all this time into the terrain.
Nice.
So that's me on all my games. Russ, what about you?
All right. Well, I'll try to keep this fast here. So let's see.
Yeah.
Right before Gen Con, my brother and I hung out for a weekend when the kids played together and we played games. And I brought my whole Chaos Ball set, which I have all the Chaos Ball stuff as well, but I have not painted it like Craig has. But I brought it up there, and we played the heck out of it all weekend long. So we played a total of 4 games of Chaos Ball, which is a pretty hefty investment. We loved every minute of it. We loved all the teams, loved everything about it. It's just fantastic. He's totally hooked on it. So it's great. And that's exactly the reason I backed it, because I figured he'd like it a lot. So we had a great time with that. Then it was off to Dead Zone. Then it was off to Gen Con. And as Craig mentioned, played Black Fleet. I like that game so much I picked it up. I have a copy of that, and I'm sure we'll review it at some point. I really like that one. Also played Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. Teras, did you get a chance to try Dead of Winter?
No, I haven't. I saw a lot of people playing it.
Dead of Winter was one of the big talks of Gen Con. It is a plaid hat game. It is a zombie game. One of the more common themes there. But, yeah, it's a really neat co-op, semi-co-op. You're fighting zombies. But in this one, instead of playing a single survivor, which is what most zombie games are like, this game, there's a community going on there, and you're playing a faction, several survivors within inside of the community and doing things. But then you've also got sub-objectives. One of you may or may not be the traitor, kind of like Shadows of Camelot. You don't really know if there's a traitor or not. But then in addition to that, you also have sub-objectives that you only win if the community wins and your sub-objectives are achieved. So what that means is once in a while, you'll be forced to do things that don't make sense to other players. And so they'll suspect you as a traitor, even though you're not a traitor. You just have to do your sub-objectives. So that introduces a little interesting mix. Neat game.
And apparently you can become a zombie, and then you actually play the zombie after. Is that correct?
You can become a bad guy, yeah. You transitions over, yeah. Student Bodies is like that part where you actually become the zombie and you fight back at the end too, which is neat. Then I played, so my daughter and I were walking by one of the demo table areas there, not actually in the vendor hall, but outside of it, and there was a huge area set up for Golem Arcana where they were going to run their first tournament. But before they ran the tournament, they were running demos. And so my oldest daughter and I played it, and we fell in love with it. And we ran off and bought all the stuff. So I'll tell you more about that later in this episode. Also played another big game that really hit home with our local group is either called Camel Cup or Camel Up. It's
actually officially called Camel Up.
It is
but
now.
The box looks like it
Camel
could be either.
Cup. Well, if you read the thing on Board Game Geek, at one point it was Camel Cup, but everybody started calling it Camel Up, so they switched the name. But in any case, it is a camel racing game, which is probably why it was originally called Cup. But instead of actually, you're not really racing camels, you're betting on which camel in the race is going to win, and you can change it as it goes. Really, really cool components. Got this little 3-dimensional pyramid. Really cool little wooden camel meeples. Really neat mechanics. My daughters fell in love with it, playing it. My oldest daughter played with, she's 12, played with an entire table of adults and actually beat the second place person by over 10 points. She was very excited. Although I'm a little concerned that she's a gambler now, so that's, but the bad news about it was it sold out like day 1.5 or something. So, we were not able to get a copy of it. But great looking game. This is going to be a hot game. Watch for Camel Up. It's going to be big.
Yeah.
Also played, I don't know, Teras, you must have seen the ads for this. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Ortus Regini?
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Anyway,
yeah,
the bags had all these little logos on it. This little like medieval artwork on it, and then there were these giant O's with like a castle in them, and they were all over Gen Con. Basically, they were a giant sponsor of Gen Con. They had their whole little room outside the thing. And so I'm watching this all weekend, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's a deck building game. I don't, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I on Sunday, or Saturday evening, it was Saturday, before we didn't want to fight the big mob into the con Saturday morning. So let's go check out this thing. It's outside. We'll go look at it. And my whole family got the whole demo to themselves. We sat down and played it, and we really liked it. It was really cool. It's not really a deck building game. You can adjust your deck before play starts, but it's not a deck builder like Dominion. The art is fantastic, and it's really sort of a medieval political type game where you're doing all these things where you're trying to build your fiefdom, but you're going in and assassinating other people's princes, and you're calling a joust together to try to win their property, and then you're building armies because the Vikings are coming, and really interesting game, and we ended up buying it for the family. My wife, Nicole, liked it, and the kids liked it, so we ended up getting it, and then a good friend of ours, local gamers, the Aherns, also went by, and they also got it. So those who tried it, if you like this kind of game, I thought it was going to be more complex than it was. My kids totally got into it. Started assassinating each other, and the woman was like, boy, there's no love lost between siblings. I said, nope. Clearly you haven't played a lot of games with kids. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
I love those type of backstabbing games.
Oh, it's definitely got that. It's definitely, because there's this, you're fighting each other, but then there's like this Viking menace coming, kind of like, the wall, the wall in Game of Thrones, right? There's this overall bad guy menace building up. So you've got to kind of watch for that, but at the same time, you're busy backstabbing each other, which is kind of neat. Also, for the first time, and I don't know why, because it's been out for a while, I've been seeing these little bags. So at Myriad Games, they've had this little ninja head dice bag thing.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Forever. And finally, I never bought it. I'm like, I don't need another dice game. I never touched it. And then at Gen Con, someone picked it up and started playing it. And it's actually a heck of a lot of fun, right, Craig? Did you play it?
I think it was Jeremy. Yeah,
yes.
No, we played. I played with you.
It's got a neat mechanic where because one of the problems with these dice games is they're kind of like little solo games, right? Like you roll all yourself and you get a score, and then you pass to the next player, and they all roll themselves and you get a score, and you pass to the next player. But in Ninja Dice, while there's one main roller, everybody else gets a single die, and they're doing things too to try to foil him or get their own points. And it's got a neat mechanic too where the direction and angle the dice fall actually matter. So the relative position of each other matters. So you kind of get into this little mode of trying to roll the dice a certain way and fling them. And it actually was a lot of fun. I thought it was pretty good. Cool. And it comes in a really cool bag. It's a ninja head, so you can't go wrong with that. Then, as Craig mentioned, we played Student Bodies, which I really enjoyed that a lot. And we'll probably review that because we got a great copy of that, and it looks like a lot of fun.
And that's a zombie game also?
Yes, it is. Oh. So this one's neat, though, Teras, because it's actually got a sticker right in the front that says, yes, it's another zombie game, but here's why you need to buy it, because. And it tells you all. But what's cool about it is you're a high school student, and there are no weapons of any kind in the game. So you're not, like, actively fighting zombies. What's actually happened is you started as humans, the game controls the zombies, and you're running around basically the halls of a high school, but here's the thing. You've already been bitten by zombies. So you're already going to turn into a zombie, but in the science class lab room there is an antidote for the zombies. So what you got to do is you got to run through the halls that are infested with zombies. I don't have to be faster than the zombies. I got to be faster than Craig, basically, or get Craig attacked by zombies.
So you can get an antidote and make sure he doesn't.
It's Smirk and Dagger, right? Awesome. So basically, you get the antidote, then you turn human, then you try to get back out of the school and escape. Problem is, if you die and you haven't had the antidote yet, you become a zombie, and then your goal is to prevent anybody else. Then you're fighting them. If you get the antidote, though, and then die, you're just out because you can't turn into a zombie anymore. So it's really, there's a point of no return where you're definitely a survivor and you got to get away, but in the middle, you could turn into a zombie. So it's kind of neat. If you don't think you're going to make yourself a zombie. So it's got very much that Smirk and Dagger thing going on. A lot of fun, neat components.
But for those of you who are about to play it, take a moment to read the section about leveling the difficulty.
Yes.
Because we accidentally played at World War Z level.
Yeah.
So
that was an error.
Yeah, that was an error. I blame Phil.
Yes, we blame Phil.
Which means indirectly I blame Teras for bringing Phil to the United States.
Yes, we blame Phil. Viva la Pole, Phil.
Viva la Pole.
Now also
I like zombie games, so the comment about is that a zombie game was intriguing to me, not the other.
No, I understand. And then got to play a couple games of Hordes. My oldest daughter really, really, really wanted to bring her Hordes because I told her there's all these cool tables at Gen Con and everything. And of course, they have the awesome Iron Arena there. So we got to play. I played with her one Saturday night. It was awesome. We had a listener happened to be sitting next to us and saw my D6G patch. He goes, "Are you the D6G?" And it was very complimentary. So shout out to you, my friend. And I'm sorry I forget your name. I'm like, Craig, I got to take notes of these things.
Notes.
I really do. Had Had a great time, great game with Rose. It was fun. She beats me more often than I beat her. So the first game, there's all these War Machine players sitting around. They don't, except for the one guy who don't know me. So here I am playing a 12-year-old girl, and I just cast a killer like in turn 2 because she just totally forgot to put stealth on. I'm like, yes, I defeated her, and they're all looking at me like, you just killed a 12-year-old in like one turn. You're such a jerk. I'm like, no, you don't understand. She always beats me. So I'm like, let's play again, and then we played again, and she destroyed me. But it was cool. She loved playing on the really cool, really nice tables they have there, and there were all the special table rules, and it was really a lot of fun. She just got a real big kick out of that, and that was really nice to be able to share that with her. That was awesome. Then, let's see. Then we got back from Gen Con, and this is interesting. So while I was away, so here I am, big gamer guy, podcast dude, whatever. I'm away from my day job, my work. And all of a sudden, a gaming group starts up at lunch, and I'm not even involved at all with it. I'm like, what these guys are playing games, and they're playing cool gamery games. What happened there? So I'm like, I would like to come into this gaming group. So I got into the gaming group, and they're playing Coup. Have you seen this game, Teras or Craig? Coup?
I've seen it. I have not played it.
It's kind of like it's a role-based game, and you have 2 cards, and it's a bluffing game, though. So what you do is, you can say, for example, each of the face cards, and you can start with 2 of them, have different abilities. And one of the abilities might be, for example, I can levy taxes and get 3 gold. It's if you have the Duke, for example. So I can say, I have the Duke. I'm going to levy taxes and get 3 gold. Now, I could not have the Duke. I could be lying. And what you can do is you can challenge me and say, you don't have the Duke. That's BS. Show me the Duke. Now, if I have the Duke, one of your guys dies, one of your 2 guys, and you're down to 1 card, a face card. If I don't have the Duke, then I lose my Duke. And basically the player who loses his 2 face cards is out of the game. And after I show my Duke, I then draw a new face card, so now I have somebody else. You don't know what I have. If you let me get too much money, though, then I can do an action that can assassinate one of your characters. So you basically are trying to bluff each other. It's a really neat little game. Very evil. Plays very, very quickly. Neat little game. Coup. I like that a lot. Then the best part about Gen Con is buying all the games. But what's better than that? Coming home with a giant bag of games to find a UPS package on your front door that is more games from a Kickstarter you backed a while ago and forgot about. So, and lo and behold, Sentinel Tactics in all its glory was sitting on my doorstep when I got home. And Sentinel Tactics is the new Sentinel of the Multiverse game from Greater Than Games, but this one is same theme, same heroes, same villains, but now instead of a card game where you work together to fight the villain, it is a hex-based tactical combat game, but which is cool. But then also, if you back in Kickstarter or buy it separately, you can replace all the tokens with miniatures. So I actually have all these cool plastic miniatures of all the heroes, and they look actually quite good. All the heroes, all the villains, and it's kind of Descent-like. It comes with these cool comic books. With each comic book is a scenario that takes you through like some comic panels telling the story and then scenario. Then a couple more comic panels telling you more story than the second scenario. So it's kind of like Descent, where you have 2 or 3 scenarios in a row that tell a story, and you play them back to back, and you're finally done. It plays fast enough that you can play the entire comic book of scenarios in one session, like 1 2 to 3 hour session, where each scenario takes like about a half an hour to 45 minutes. So you can bang right through and do it. Each scenario builds on each other. One person typically plays the villain. Up to 4 other players or 5 other players play the heroes. And it scales really well. The villain gets more actions, other options if there's more heroes. It's really a lot of fun. I like it a lot. There's a lot there. If you play the first scenario, it's going to feel a little simple, but that's okay. It's because it's trying to get you learning. Play through the second scenario. Once you get into the second scenario, you're like, oh, now I see why it's tactical. You got to avoid these turrets, get around over here, blow that up. Really a lot of fun. And it's very unforgiving, kind of like Sentinels of the Multiverse, where certain heroes combos, unless you're really good, will fail. So, like, if you take all hand-to-hand combat heroes and need a range attack, you kind of SOL. So you want to build your party with good variety and stuff. So that's that one.
I gather that's by the same company then.
It is Greater Than Games, yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, great game. That was they were showing the Gen Con too, but I didn't buy it there because I knew I had it coming from Kickstarter. Then I played so Jeff Engelstein. So the night of the Geek Nation Tours dinner. By the way, a shout out to our friends from Louisiana, New Orleans, there at our table. Teras, you remember their names? I forget their names. I'm trying to remember.
Yes, Lee and Jessica.
Thank you, Lee and Jessica. There, a lot of great folks at our table.
There's a tour master.
There is a tour master, but Lee and Jessica were so great. I promised them a shot on the show. Thanks for being so front of the table there. But anyway, while we're there. They were great. And while we're there at the Geek Nation Tours dinner, Craig has, of course, gathered everyone around for Werewolf. But meanwhile, Jeff Engelstein walks over and says, Russ, I got to show you this cool game. It's basically a board game based on, old video game cabinet games from like the 80s. It's like looks like Galaga or Defender or something. So I'm like, oh, I got to check that out. So a couple of the guys from the tour jumped in, and so Jeff is trying to teach us this game, and it's called The Battle at Kemble's Cascade. Now, the problem with trying to teach a game at an event like this where there's lots of noise and you're at a restaurant is you kind of need to know the rules first. And in Jeff's fairness, he literally just bought the game before he came out to dinner. So he hadn't even opened it up yet. So we're opening, packing, trying to learn the rules. Essentially, we got it set up and got through half a turn, and then we ran out of time.
I told you guys you had to stop.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, no, don't feel bad. We knew we were in trouble, but I wanted to see it. So anyway, didn't get a chance to try it any other time at Gen Con, but it turned out that some of our local friends also discovered this game and brought it back. So last night, I got a chance to try it out, and it was a lot of fun. It is very much like a video game, and you fly around on your little spaceships, and you blow things up, and all the cards look like little 8-bit stuff, and then eventually a giant boss comes out that's massive, and you got to blow it up. It might play a little longer than it needs to for such a light kind of game that's sort of silly. I think it kind of outstays its welcome a little bit, but it's a lot of fun if you like space games, and you might enjoy this one as well. So I'd take a look at it if you like old 8-bit games. And finally, speaking of long games, I did get a chance to finally play. I did pick up at Gen Con Level 7 Invasion, but I never got a chance to play it. It's a very meaty game. You can tell by looking at it, there's a lot of interesting rules and a lot of cool components, and it was a big investment. And I remembered from last year's Gen Con, we tried to play Firefly at like 11 o'clock at night, how poorly that went. So I was like, I'm not going to try it unless I've got an early start and people who really want to play it. So that never really came into option, so I decided to wait till I got home. And found a group of people. We played it last night. It took about 4.5 to 5 hours with the learning game, so it is a big time sink. I think you could probably get it done in like 3 to 4 hours if you knew what you were doing. But every person of the 5-person players there loved it, and we can't wait to play again. It is really a lot of fun. It's a semi-co-op where the aliens are invading. It's a world domination, area control, map-based game. Awesome components. Looks fantastic. Huge table game. Takes up lots and lots of space because you've each got your own little table things. It's one of those games that's just like a great Saturday afternoon, set this giant epic thing up and just sit down with a big bowl of chips and some soda and play. It's a lot of fun. Not that complicated once you get through a turn. Really not, actually, but a lot of depth to it. And looks fun. I can't wait to play more of it. So, Level 7 Invasion. And that, were all the board games I played.
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, we did really well.
We did. What about modeling? Anybody get any, modeling in while we were at Gen Con and everything?
I did some today.
What'd you do, Teras?
I'm actually, there's a challenge. You know that we play our crazy game at Adepticon every year.
Yes.
With tequila.
Yeah, right. Yes.
And so this year the challenge is to do a race, a 40K drag race. So everybody has to pick some fast-moving things to race across the hallways of the new Adepticon hall.
Yeah.
So I've decided to do a Sneech, Disc of Sneech and Chaos Space Marine.
Ooh, nice.
But the second component is a Mauler Fiend, and I'm not really big on that particular model. So I'm converting a Forge World spiked Chaos Beast into a Mauler Fiend with power claws from Gazagul.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I'm doing. So I'm now in the green stuffing the stretched skin across the power claws. That's what I did.
Nice. Awesome. How about you, Craig?
Yes.
I've been working on my Dead Zone terrain. I got the Ruined Quadrant when it first came up for pre-order from Mantic Games, and I got it about a week or two before Gen Con, and I cleaned it. I clipped everything off the sprues. I cleaned it all, and I've just been putting together the entire set in a modular way so I can make it different every time. So Russ, actually, you tweeted some pictures of it last night. That's all work in progress. And I think I tweeted another picture today. If it went out, I don't know. My phone's been bad with Twitter lately. But I'm hopefully going to finish that up over the next few days, including a big fortress that I made out of the bunker sprues that came with the Ruined Quadrant. So that's all I've been doing right now. But I'm hoping to get my Strider for Dead Zone. I just have to, I have it. I'm hoping to put it together and get some paint on it. I just have to choose who to make it for because I have 3 factions, giant forces for all 3, the Rebs, the Enforcers, and the Plague. and the Strider, when you buy it, comes with enough pieces to make one Strider for either the Enforcers, the Rebs, or the Plague. So
Nice.
I have to choose who I'm going to make it for.
Choose wisely.
That terrain is really cool.
It is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the way it clips together and everything.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's really, really an amazing system that they've come up with.
Yeah.
And the Mars Attacks terrain is brick walls that work exactly the same way. So I think that's going to be really cool for like World War II guys when that comes out more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been working on that, and I'm hopeful to get some really cool stuff finished very soon.
Yeah, man,
I like how Mantic's made it so that you don't have to enforce the floors. You can take the floors right off too if you use clips correctly.
Oh, yeah.
So
absolutely.
Stuff.
There's all kinds of
it's brilliant. They really set a new standard for terrain, I think.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So not a lot, except here's the little magic Gen Con moment. So my oldest daughter's been into War Machine now for 2 years. My rule was when you turn 10, you can start playing miniature games. And my youngest daughter, she turned 10 back in February, and I made her the same offer, but she's never been that passionate about it. She's like, I don't know if I want to paint. So she's always been kind of but at Gen Con, she got the fever, and she's like, I really want to get into War Machine, Dad, and I want to do Everblight, because they're dragons. So got her the Everblight starter set, and got home, and got them assembled for her, did the kids' gaming night the other night, and she fell in love. She was awesome. She did great. And then she got home and she's like, I want to paint him. So we started painting over the weekend, and she's doing great. She's loving every minute of it. So I'm so excited that she's into it now too. So good times. And while they're painting, I'm getting to paint, and it's family time now, so I can get painting while it's family time, which is awesome. So that was a lot of fun too.
That's a great feeling, isn't it, when they start to paint? And,
it is good.
They do well too.
They do very well. It's funny. You told them that you can show them the basic techniques, which comes out with really solid models, even if you're not really an artist. Now, it turns out my oldest daughter likes to draw, and she's pretty good at it, so she's got that little artist flair. My youngest daughter doesn't really have that, which is, I think, what intimidate her about it. But as soon as I showed her, it was, basic painting, just getting some color brings the model to life, and dry brushing and everything. She's just all into it now. So, really pleased with that. So we're working on Everblight. I worked a little bit more on my my robot maidens there, my maidens of the gears there. So having a good time with War Machine. Just such a great game. Great, easy to teach with kids. We've got a little kids league now going on. It's like I don't know, 4 or 5 parents, maybe like 7 kids, 8 kids playing. All between the ages of the youngest one is 7 and the oldest one is 13. So we got a good spread, and they all seem to be having a blast. So it's a good time.
That is awesome.
Good times. So what about other stuff? I know there's lots going on here. We'll try to cram it all in here quick. So, Teras, what have you been doing for movies, books, TV shows, vid games? What?
Oh, we've been actually as a family been watching all the Star Treks, the old Star Trek,
nice.
Next Generation,
Nice.
And the first the original series, the whole bit.
Yep.
It's been awesome. It really has. You know what? I had a gift the other day. I saw an original series show that I'm sure I've never seen before.
Oh, wow. That's a bonus.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen this show before. So it might have been Star Trek brain, or that you completely forget the whole thing. But yeah,
Spock's brain. Yes, that was
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it was great. It was a real treat.
Yeah.
Movies. I've been to this last week. I went to 3.
What'd you see?
Fact.
Wow.
I saw Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, what'd you think?
Oh yeah,
I loved it. It was really good.
It was great.
I was surprised at how it was a science fiction and not a superhero show in a lot of ways.
It was more of that, yes. Yep.
You got the feel of more of a science fiction. I really liked that. And those that's the comics I used to really dig when I was young. Anyway, those sci-fi superhero guys, and it was really great. And yeah, the Rocket stole the show. I think Groot actually was really awesome too.
Yep,
that was very good. I saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with my daughter.
Now, what'd you think of that?
And it was fun. I laughed out loud during the show. I don't do that very often, so I really had a good time. Actually, it brought back a lot of memories. I was a little bit older for that when that came out. I watched it every once in a while when I'm sick or something at home, collected 1 or 2 of the comic books a long time ago. But yeah, I really had a lot of fun. It was very funny, and there was lots of excitement and cool special effects, and yeah, I dug it.
Very cool.
Then I saw the second installment of Sin City, So that was I really liked it. I could see if you're a movie critic, you'd almost have to say more of the same. But if you're a comic book person and seeing Sin City, when they say more of the same, it is more of the same. So if you liked Sin City, the first one, you're going to like this one.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
lots of males in the theater.
Why would that be? I don't understand.
Yeah. So and it was violent and sexy, but it was more of the same. So if you're going to see it, expect it to be the same. Don't expect it to be something new, because it's not something new.
Right. All right. Cool.
And we're just finishing up our planning and letting out our Adepticon tour. Very excited about that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. It's going to be bigger and better than before, of course, because the new venue really helped us open it up, and we're going to have something every night. So
awesome.
Yeah, which is kind of strange. I mean, we always have something every night in that we go out for dinner, but we're going to actually have an event every night. And I'll go over quickly the events, if you don't mind, and because I'd love to hear what you guys think about it.
Sure.
The first night, of course, we do our welcome dinner, and as we were talking about role playing today, I'm very happy because our welcome dinner is after our welcome dinner, I'm not exactly sure who we're going to have to speak, but our welcome dinner post experience will be a role playing in the 40K and Warhammer Fantasy universe. Oh, cool. So I'm going to get game masters to come and give a immersive experience into the universe. So, which is not what tabletop gamers are used to, but I think it's going to be a cool experience for them. No investment needed. Just bang, you're an agent of the Inquisition or Empire Knight. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, cool.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So that's my first one. The next one, we have our podcast, Meet the Podcasters night. Ooh. And so you guys are invited to that if you have the time.
I think we will.
And we're going to escape to the Ram and just kind of have more of a buffet style dinner, but just everybody kind of circulate and talk to their favorite podcasters. We've got tons of people coming, 40K Radio, Bad Dice, Gamers Lounge,
nice.
Independent Characters, Ohio Hammer. Oh, the Overlords. So,
very cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that.
If you guys, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sign me up, Teras. That sounds awesome.
All right, good. Come on by. I'll be happy. And then the next night we're going to have our Wargaming Industry Leaders Night, which is where we have several companies come by, talk about what they do, give us demos of their games, and then play full games into the evening.
Ooh.
So like for instance, Outlaw Miniatures and Mantic are going to be there, and they'll demo a few games, and then then we'll be able to play the full game if we want to go ahead and do that. So I think it's going to be a great way of getting people closer to their game designers and trying something that they've never tried before, kind of out of the box.
That sounds fantastic, Teras.
That's very cool.
Man, I want to go on that tour.
Yeah. And then the one last night, the Piece de Resistance, is our Pro Painters night. So this one we're going to have, it's going to take place at GameWorks, so we can play video games in the background. And Chris Bohr, Meg Maples, and Dave Taylor are going to come and talk about how they got into the pro painting type of industry.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, they're going to sit down individually with each tour participant to talk about how they can get their miniatures better.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
One-on-one time with them.
Wow, that's sweet.
So
very nice.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. I think that's going to be a really big thing. And then those people that aren't hanging out with the Pro Painter get to play video games. So
very cool.
So yeah, that's a couple other things that are going to happen throughout. Of course, we've got our public registration and all that other jazz we've always had before. But yeah, we're very excited about making this kind of more of an elite gamer, elite Adepticon package that everybody gains a tremendous amount from and awesome. Has tons of very cool experiences. So that's our new look for Adepticon.
Nice,
very cool,
awesome, Teras. Well, we're going along, so I'm going to do just 3 quick short ones here, and then Craig can jam all his stuff in here. Here we go. Ready? All right. First, I am about halfway through the 3rd book in Larry Correa's Hard Magic series. OMG, is this a good series? Oh, my God, is it good. Teras, have you read this series? Hardback?
Oh, but I've heard really good.
Oh, you got to read it. It's awesome. It is awesome. Larry's so good at dialogue, and it's just a great setting. I love the characters. Faye is so amazingly cool. And Larry, I've said it on Twitter. I'll say it again. If you kill Faye, I will be very put out. Just saying. Just saying. Also, of course, love Guardians of the Galaxy. It was fantastic. And the one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention this. The game, Craig mentioned the game he most wished was there and he drooled on, but it was not there. The game I most wished was there and drooled on and stared at very closely and intently. And they were explaining the rules and giving demos, and I couldn't hear them because I was too busy staring at the awesome models, was Imperial Assault from Fantasy Flight Games.
Yeah.
This is Star Wars, literally Star Wars meets Descent 2. They take the Descent 2 rules, they tie it with Star Wars. Characters are playing the rebellion members like Wookiees and Jedi and, smugglers and whatever else. And you're going up against various forms. It's not just stormtroopers. The Overlord has access to ATSTs and various kinds of stormtroopers. Darth Vader's, Boba Fett, guys with tripods. It's all in there. All looks good. The models are fantastic. The game board looks awesome. It is exactly what you'd expect. Descent plus Star Wars equals awesome. It's like Star Wars, the RPG that they own, just got smushed with Descent, and the baby is just fantastic. So
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that can't come out soon enough, basically. So, Craig, what have you got for other?
Well, I'll zip through my other also. True Dungeon, we did that at Gen Con, and I would have to say the technology on the puzzle run really got kicked up a few notches. There was some really amazing technology that made the puzzles really cool and visually interactive and really neat. And of course, Artemis, we already talked about. Artemis was the only chance I actually got to play a game with Garrett, and he was a little busy being the captain, finally getting his promotion. But I had been hoping to game with him all weekend, and that didn't happen. But we got a chance to play Artemis, which is so cool, like we said, with the strategic element involved. On my birthday, I got to see 2 movies, and I chose Lucy, which was okay. It was entertaining. And then Karen actually went with me to prove me wrong on Guardians of the Galaxy, and she enjoyed it, which is amazing. So I have
very nice.
Yeah, I've never been happier to be wrong on a prediction, except for that one where I said something horrible was going to happen to the Earth. I loved it. I've already seen it twice. I want to see it again. I think it's fantastic. Karen enjoyed it. I thought she was going to hate the raccoon. She ended up saying that she thinks the raccoon and Groot were done the way they were done, specifically for the female audience because of the way they interacted and the way their emotional arcs. And so I just watched a bunch of stuff blowing up. But whatever she says.
Hey, Dancing Baby Groot is awesome.
That's right.
Spoiler.
Spoiler. And so I just finished Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings and jumped right into Words of Radiance, so I did like that. And that's about it, really.
Nice. All right. Very cool.
So yeah, that's it's a busy
Nice.
time. School just started. But
what a fantastic Gen Con we all had there. That was awesome.
It was amazing, and that was
Achievements.
In a world where board gaming was king, in a time when Kickstarter ruled the web, when every day brought more and more games, now, more than ever, 2 men, and a revolving third chair, and a girl, a total fangirl, brought a shining light into the darkness so that all mankind would know what to buy. They are the D6 generation.
Oh, that's the sound of a very hungry wolf, Craig. A very hungry
like the wolf. What?
Are you lost and found?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I'm
That
lost
is the
and
sound of a
unfound.
hungry wolf.
You know, my party is never lost, Craig. You know why they're never lost?
Why is your party never
My
lost,
party
Russ?
is never lost because I've been using RealmWorks. As I've talked elsewhere on the show lately, I've been getting my kids into D&D 5th edition, and I am throwing everything, my entire campaign, all the information right into Realmworks, and man, does it make it convenient. I've plugged in my second screen, so I've got my whole thing set up in my basement, right?
I saw the picture from Twitter that you're using your giant flat screen TV.
Yeah, I got a TV in the basement because that's where the kids hang out and watch their Disney movies and play on the Xbox or whatever. And so I decided to put a table in front of that, and I took the HDMI cable out and plugged it inside of my computer. And what's cool about Realmworks is there's always been a player view in Realmworks where you can go through and as you've typed in all your content into Realmworks, right? So you've got your monsters, you've got your stats, you got that area set up for that town, and you've got information in the town, different items in the town. Like, did you know there's a vampire that lives in the second house to the left? Did you know that someone's been sneaking victims in there to them? Well, as you discover these things, you can click buttons, and what'll happen is it'll tell you that you flagged it as the players now know this information. And then you can have a secondary screen and have it show up on that screen for the players. So let's say there's a map to that vampire's house in your system. You hit a button, the players can see it. But it gets better than that. They have Fog of World, Craig.
Fog of World?
Fog of World. How it works is on my screen, I can see the entire map. But on the player screen, they just see the black square where the map's going to be. And I can have a little pen and I can drag over that and parts of the map will reveal itself. So as the players slowly enter the house and start turning corners from the dining room to the kitchen, I can color it in. They can see it unfold right on the screen in front of them. I can take pictures of, snap pictures out of different resources like monsters and things. So I'm playing with my young kids. I have them pop up on the screen there for them to see. And it just makes it that much more rich, that much more interesting. And all the information is great, easily organized. I'm right there. And my brother came up to ask me, because how is everything, you used to kind of fumble through your books and try to find the names of characters, and now that you have them all right there for yourself. And I'm like, it's Realmworks, man. It's just so awesome. There is no better way to organize your information for RPGs. It really isn't. You got to check this thing out.
It's awesome.
You really do. And there's a free demo right now, so head over to Lone Wolf Development and check out the amazing demo of Realmworks.
And very quickly, of course, don't forget all their other fine products, and including Army Builder, which now has 7th edition 40K files. So
nice.
All that's up to date too. So lots of cool stuff going on over at wolflair.com. Echo.
And now, what's in the news? With the shout out, it's Extra Life time. Help us help kids via our Extra Life donation pages. Head on over to the D6Generation.com and scroll down to find the giant game controller with angel wings. Click on the links in that area to find out more information on how you can help play games and heal kids. And now, what's in the news? First up, Fantasy Flight Games has recently posted a preview of The Witcher rules for play. 2 of the sections of the rules are now being previewed, movement and actions. For those who don't know, the new Witcher game is based on the video game IP of the same name. The Witcher Adventure Game, it's called. It's a war game for 2 to 4 players, and you'll take on the role of an iconic character from the best-selling Witcher novels and video game series, of course. The Witcher Adventure Game challenges you to prove yourself the most renowned hero of the realm by completing quests, but the continent is filled with danger. Danger, Will Robinson. Oh, wrong IP, sorry. You'll need to find your wits and combat skills to survive the day. If you're a fan of Witcher, you'll want to check out this preview. In other news, Iron Kingdom Excursion Season 1 collection is now available. Bunch of short stories in the Iron Kingdoms universe from Skull Island Expeditions and our friends at Privateer Press. A lot of great stories here. It's on sale on the Kindle store via the Skull Island Expeditions website, as well as the Nook bookstore, and also DriveThruFiction.com. All kinds of ways to get those things. Lots of great short stories here by a lot of great authors. Russ's current personal favorite author, Larry Correia. Oh, I love Larry. Yeah, he's got a story in there, Step Outside. A lot of other great authors there as well. So if you're a fan of the Iron Kingdom setting and you want to know more, definitely head on over to Skull Island Expeditions for all the latest hotness there. And finally, now it is time for App of the Ep. Wakeland, you got one? Yeah, kind of. What do you mean, kind of? Well, I haven't played it yet, but it looks like it's going to be hot. So seriously, you are reviewing an app you haven't even tried yet. Yeah, pretty much. All right, get over here. Give us the details. All right, here I come. All right, thank you, news guy. Yeah, so I'm very excited about this app. I have been a long time advocate / fan of the game Galaxy Trucker. Fantastic board game, really different board game experience. Probably one of the most unique board games you'll ever play. Great times. Just silly, wacky fun. And now it's available on iPad. So what you want to do is you basically build your spaceships out of junk. That's the party of it. Now in the board game version, you're grabbing tiles at random, trying to make them work. At the same time, other players are granting them at random. I'm really looking forward to see how they do this on the iPad. It's out right now. I just haven't had a chance to grab my iPad and download it at the time of this recording, but I really wanted to share this with you. I will review it in a future episode. It's great. It's got a lot of cool features too built in this. I'm really excited to try out. For example, you're going to be able to do the cool campaigns. Online quick duel. You got asynchronous or real-time play with friends. Multiplayer single tablet pass and play, which I love that. It's so much fun on an airplane, or if you're stuck on a line, you can pass your iPad around. 12 AI personalities for solo play as well. So if you're stuck on the airport and no friends, you can still play the game. Real-time or turn-based building. Autopilot for faster flights. You don't have to do all the manual flight mechanics, because basically if you really like building the ship and don't like the actual adventure part, you just watch what happens. 81 different achievements, and there's no in-app purchases, just a one-time fee. So check it out. Galaxy Trucker on the iPad. It's out now. Thank you, Wakeland. And that's What's in the News. Hey, now it's time to talk about our friends at GeekNationTours.com. Right, Craig?
That's right. Absolutely. If you are, we're just getting into winter around here. So things are still, we've got the dog days of summer. We've got, or actually those are all long gone, but then you've got Indian summer that keeps rolling in.
Yeah.
Getting pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're not really thinking about vacations now, but now is the time to start planning ahead.
It is.
So let's say, you want to go to feudal Japan. Well, you can't go to feudal Japan because, they don't have any DeLoreans on staff. But they do have like jets that'll bring you to regular Japan, and they'll tour the areas that were really important during feudal Japan. So that, of course, is coming up in October. Yeah, that's closed. However, if you're looking for cool stuff, here's what I would love to do. I would pay like triple if I could get the time off. This is, of course, Journey to Middle Earth.
Oh,
tour.
Yeah.
Go to New Zealand and see all the different locations. And we talk about all. So not just the Shire, which everybody knows I've driven a mile out of. But I mean, you're going to see the mountains. You're going to see the deserts. You're going to see all kinds of cool stuff. They're going to bring you all over, and you're going to see all the cool locations from The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings movies.
They've got tours for everything. Great battlefields, great movie locations, whether it's, as Craig mentioned, Lord of the Rings, whether you're going to see great movie locations where Star Trek was filmed out in L.A. and Hollywood. Or let's say you want to go to really great gaming conventions like TempleCon or Adepticon or GenCon.
Or Comic-Con.
Or Comic-Con, all those events as well. The best way to see all the craziness. And it is insane because not only do they take you to the conventions, they get you behind the scenes of these conventions with people you just would not see otherwise. Access to great game designers, celebrities that are visiting the convention, con organizers to really make sure you get the best experience, and things outside the con and around the city. So head on over to GeekNationTours.com, click on the upcoming tours tab, and just really soak in all that geeky goodness.
Pick your next vacation. We are not lying to you in any way when we tell you that as a gamer, there is no better way to travel than with GeekNationTours.com.
The D6 generation. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, but better than The Hobbit.
But The Hobbits has the lovely hobbitses. Smeagol, there is only one hobbits in the hobbits. There are 1, 2, many hobbits in the Lord of the Rings.
Hey, welcome back. And first of all, we're very excited to be rejoined by Garrett Wang. How you doing, Garrett?
Wang.
Oh, you had it right in the first time.
He
you backed off of
it's
it.
the spelling.
He self-corrected
my
to the wrong
confidence.
pronunciation.
So Garrett, how do I correctly pronounce your last name?
Okay, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Only Americans pronounce the A hard.
Oh.
Okay. That's the problem. I mean, if I'm in France, they'll say, Monsieur Wang, how are you? They'll pronounce the A soft. It's a soft A.
Okay.
Just remember this. Do not pronounce the way ex-President Bush pronounces everything. So it's not IRAQ is not Iraq, like he says. Right. And it's IRAN is not Iran, like he says. It's Iraq and Iran. So if you pronounce it soft, the proper way, only Americans pronounce it a hard A. For some reason.
We're all screwed up.
I'm a
and Russ is at the
culture.
forefront.
I'm a victim of my native culture. What can
I'll tell you, it's not only that, but you've been conditioned by the computer company Remember
That's
that back in
true.
the 80s,
True, yeah.
That's
WANG,
true.
they were Wang computers.
They
They
were.
didn't pronounce it the correct way because they just didn't, because they gave up. And it's also you're also conditioned by the designer, Vera Wang, who
Yes.
someday when I meet
See?
that woman, I'm going to shake her. I'm going to shake her to her foundation, and I'm going to, just like in that scene from Airplane where they're shaking the little girl. Everyone's like in line to calm her down. The nuns are shaking. I'm going to do the same thing. So to Vera for messing with me, but
Nice.
But then people say, well, why don't you spell it W-O? I said, well, because that actually denotes what part of China your ancestors are from.
Oh,
So
see?
if it's W-O-N-G, it's southern China. W-A-N-G is a central and northern Chinese
Got
spelling.
it. Now, is there a
So-
phonetical difference between W-O-N-G and W-A-N-G?
No, not really. It's just Wang and Wang, so it's
Okay.
the same.
All
But the Chinese character is different. The Chinese character for W-O-N-G means the color yellow. And if we were to say it in Mandarin Chinese, we would say Huang. H-U-A-N-G would be the Mandarin spelling for W-O-N-G. It's very confusing. W-A-N-G, my last name means king. K-I-N-G, like the king of a kingdom, king.
Right.
So, and the interesting I share with Walter Koenig, who I was just with at DragonCon, is Koenig in German means king. So
Right.
we're the two kings of Star Trek. So
That's awesome. Well, see, I learn something new every day, and I'm so
There you
excited to
go.
do these things.
And sadly, then he immediately forgets it. But he does learn something new
You
every day.
started with Wang. You started with you and Garrett Wang like that.
Because he learned it, and then he
I'm
forgot it.
strong on learning. I'm weak on retention. It's just a thing. Okay, I can't explain.
That's okay.
Well,
No worries.
Garrett, thank you so much for joining us again. And Teras, of course, is on the episode. And we thought, wouldn't it be great to kind of get your guys' feedback on Gen Con 2014 this year?
Yes.
Teras kicked the tour up a notch or two this year. We'd love to get the feedback on that. And then also, Garrett, because you go to so many different cons, but they're usually more of the, sci-fi is the wrong thing, but more fan conventions, right? More of the fandom type stuff around comics and pop culture and geek culture. And yet Gen Con's more of a gaming convention. So we'd love to get your take on how it's different and what the energy difference is and what the experience is different from the other conventions. So, So Teras, let's start with you. So what did you guys do a little bit different this year? I mean, you did kick it up a bit. What was the inspiration for making it a little more eventful, I should say?
Sure. Well, I looked at the years prior to see what we were doing, and everybody wanted more and more gaming, and I think that's what I realized, that it's a gaming tour, and as Gen Con is a gaming convention, you get your hands dirty with dice. So I decided to really notch up the gaming aspect, and therefore have some elite gaming experiences. So we did Space Cadets Dice Duel at Scotty's with Stronghold Games, and and of course the Engelsteins were there to help teach us. That was a huge event for us. It was in the morning, and the Kentucky Fried Gamers gave us a space at Scotty's to do so. So shout out to them. Mm-hmm. And that was a tremendous event. Garrett and I can talk about that. I'd love to hear what he thinks.
Yeah. So was that Garrett's? Was that your first big game at Gen Con this year? Was the
Yes,
that
the Space Cadets game, board game. Yes.
Now, what did you think? That's a very unusual game to begin with. So, what did you kind of think as they're taking all these dice out and people are starting to explain this thing to you?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was funny because my team, we couldn't roll dice to save our lives that morning. I mean, literally, nothing we rolled was good. It was like, what? Are you kidding me? So we just got we got soundly beaten, thrashed by the other team that we were playing over and over again. I think it was like 8 matches to 1 or something like that. It's like just something ridiculous. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun, though. I definitely had a blast playing that. That was my introduction. It was a tad bit early, Teras, but it's okay. It happens that way.
And what time was it?
I'm gonna start doing. Hey, Teras, I'm gonna start a hashtag blame it on Teras.
That would be fair. It did. It was early. It was 9 a.m. and as you know, that game is like
wow.
Accelerate.
Yeah, 9 a.m. is a little early for Dice
high
Duel.
energy game.
It is.
That is early.
But in Teras's, I just want to stick up. I also want to. If I'm going to say something negative, I'm going to also say something positive too. But Teras really had the schedule laid out. I mean, that man just. I mean, there wasn't a time in the day where it wasn't filled with something. You know what I'm saying? So I think that in terms of the people that went on the tour, they definitely got their money's worth in my estimation. They got to experience a lot of different things, so that was wonderful. Yeah.
So that was Thursday morning, right, Teras? Was that Thursday morning?
9 a.m. We started with the coffee.
No, that was Wednesday morning.
Was it Wednesday
Yeah,
morning?
Wednesday.
Prior.
Wow.
Yeah, that's prior to the convention. Exactly.
Oh, man.
So
That's right.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And then we did some gaming with the KFG for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we did our welcome dinner at Ruth Chris's steakhouse.
Yo, that was
Chris
delicious.
Steakhouse, one of them. So that was really good. You guys were there. So
Yeah.
And we had several different speakers. We had the crew from Dice Tower there, too. That was really interesting to have them against you guys. I still think you guys should have did a dance-off, though.
Maybe
Well,
next
that
time.
wasn't going to happen.
That was not this year. We wanted to make sure they were ready. That's all.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, clearly they stumbled, and you guys were all decked out in your dance clothes, ready to give her.
We
so.
were
Well,
ready.
there's that. Whether it's, I've got my musical theater background too, so that would be totally unfair. So,
Right.
you know,
We don't want to.
I wouldn't want to be busting out those Brigadoon moves, if you know what I'm saying.
That's right. And Garrett talked. It was a really great speech. I think we talked about Robin Williams, and Garrett had some really touching.
that's
stories
right.
to talk about.
That was although it might sound wrong saying it this way, but a high point of my weekend was Garrett sharing those emails. That was really, really touching and kind of brought it home in a really personal way that I really appreciated.
Yes, just so the listeners that
absolutely
don't know what's going on, just to give them a heads up, it was basically Robin Williams. The news that Robin Williams had passed was quite fresh at that point, and there was an email sent out by Ethan Phillips, who played Neelix on Voyager, to all the Voyager cast members, and basically he talked about his time with Robin in terms of when we were filming Voyager. Robin was working on a movie, and they had met in one of the alleys between the two sound stages, and he talked about his experiences with meeting, how wonderful, how gracious, and how funny Robin Williams was. And then after that, each Voyager cast member then responded back to the group and just talked about their individual experiences with Robin. So at that dinner, I read Ethan Phillips' email and also Kate Mulgrew's responding email. So it was quite touching, quite moving. And at that point, nobody had heard any of that. Was the first that small room of, what do we have in there? 40 people? Did you say something like that?
Yeah, about that. Yep.
30, 40 people. Those are the first 30, 40 to hear that. I had gotten permission from Ethan to be able to read that, but not from Kate. But it's okay. I think she'll be okay with it regardless.
It was very nice.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think everyone was shocked by his passing, and I think someone came up to me and said to me later that unfortunately in this day and age, it's more acceptable to come out of the closet, to come up and say you're gay, than to come out and say I have mental problems, I have mental issues, I have mental health issues. So hopefully this will bring some bring this to the forefront, or at least make it so that people feel like there is a way out. They can talk to somebody, and that it's not just option A and option A only. So that's what we can all hope for: enhanced or increased awareness about clinical depression and anything else to do with mental issues, mental health issues.
Yeah, it was a really nice part of the thing. And the other thing too about Robin Williams passing was not only was obviously he a fantastic entertainer and beloved by our generation and many more. He also was a gamer. He played Warhammer 40,000 and a lot of other miniature games, and so he was pretty well known in the gaming community as one of those famous people who also games. And so it was kind of it was close to us in different ways. Not that I knew him personally or anything, but just that the fact that he had that interaction with our community was cool, and it was just made it that much more personal to lose him.
That was incredible that we could all share that, and I think that just be more gracious to those around you, and the whole theme of the tour was kind of be welcoming, and I think that really was a good instance and a good ability for us or response for us to be able to be to let out, be welcome, be
Absolutely.
in this, be happy with that you're a geek, and be part of the community. So
great.
So that takes us to Thursday, right, Teras? So,
yeah. That was, and then Thursday was of course the beginning of Gen Con. We went to the exhibit hall all together to watch the big opening, and several people took off to do gaming, and then at night we had our another large event, another elite event. That was the Artemis Starship Simulator, and we had it from 10:30 till I think we got out of there at 2:30 at night. It was incredible.
So I want to ask, before we get to Artemis, because I'm sure there's like a whole segment on that.
Right.
I wanted to kind of ask Garrett at this point. So you're, it's your first Gen Con since, I don't know, how many years ago since you were?
Since it was in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so 20 years ago or something. So it's a very, very long time. Obviously, you've been to a lot of other conventions since then, and those experiences are obviously fresh in your forefront of your mind. When you are there at day one at Gen Con, did it feel like, oh, here we go, just another con? Was it different? Can you describe it? How is it different than a lot of the other conventions you go to? Or was it different? Or was it pretty much the same old, same old?
No, I mean, it's different in that the focus is gaming, right? The focus is gaming. And that's what makes it so amazing, I think. I mean, just looking at that one hall, that one gaming hall with all the tables in there, it was just like, what? It's just, you don't see that. I mean, there are other, like I just got back from Dragon Con. Dragon Con has a gaming track, so they game there. They play Pathfinder, they play whatever, all the different, whatever is popular now, they have that there too, but not on the size and scale of what Gen Con is. That's what sets it apart. I mean, it really is the first, as far as I know, it's the premier gaming convention. So, and the energy is wonderful there. It's definitely something that's really nifty. And I guess Will Wheaton was there too, and somebody tried to ask for a photo, and he was like, "Nope, just here to game."
Right.
Which I would have taken the photo if it was me. I would have still said, "I'm here to game," but sure, quick, get it done, let's go, chop. I would have given them the photo. So. So I really do. I enjoy it. And the funny thing was, when I went to Gen Con in Wisconsin, I didn't game at all.
Right.
I just sat there in my little table and just signed autographs with Tim Russ charging $5 less next to me. That's where the origin of Tim Kmart Russ came from. Sorry, Tim, if you're listening to this, but that's how it all started. We had this big argument over the fact that he kept saying, he said, "You've got photo reproductions." Yeah, each photo was it was like $1.80 per photo. He goes, "Mine are lithographs. They cost me like 16 cents to print these. So that's why I'm $5 less." And I said, "Well, the average fan is not going to know that. They're going to walk up and look at this and go, Ensign Kim is being a jerk, and Tuvok is giving me a deal. So don't do that, Tuvok. Come on." So I was mad. But I want to say, can I just quickly tell one story that happened?
Absolutely.
All right. So flash forward to actually Saturday. I left Indianapolis. I flew down to Atlanta for the final Dragon Con directors meeting.
Oh, wow.
And then flew back Sunday to catch the end of con.
Nice. That is dedication right there.
So
that's awesome.
I did that. But as I flew back Sunday, I'm at the airport waiting for I booked that green shuttle to get from the airport back to the con. And there's one other guy waiting there, and he's got a badge on. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, obviously he didn't go to Atlanta also, but what does he do? What's he doing here? Turns out he had a buddy that he was from Chicago, and he and another buddy were working at one of the booths, one of the booths in the vendors hall, and his friend had this infection that this red streak started going higher and higher up his leg. And so they said, all right, we got to take you to the hospital. So they took him to the hospital and in Indianapolis, and the hospital said, we're going to have to admit you overnight. And the guy was like, no. I don't want to be admitted overnight here in Indianapolis. I'd rather be home in Chicago. So his friend drove him all the way back to Chicago.
Wow.
And then he basically drove all the way back, returned the car at the airport, and then was catching that shuttle with me on the way back to the convention. And so we're in the shuttle and we're talking, and he's telling me that, I asked him what he does, and he does software, CAD software for architects and whatnot. And we just had a nice conversation. Yeah. And then right before the driver was going to drop me off where I was supposed to go, he goes, "Wait a minute. were you on the D6 Generation podcast? Like, you're Garrett Wang from Star Trek? Oh my! I said, yeah, and that's when I was walking out the little doors of the thing. I go, see ya, like that. But the thing is, we had this awesome conversation. His name is Robert Oswald, and he now follows me on Twitter. So
very nice.
Yeah, so Bob Oswald. Shout out to you. I know you're listening right now. So
there you go, Bob.
That was my highlight. You totally recognized me after a while from the podcast from D6 Generation, and it was just mystic. It was magical looking at his eyes when they realized what was going on. He was like, because really we talked for like an hour. You know, we were waiting for the shuttle. We were doing all this. We talked about the convention, this games, and yada yada. So it was fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Cool. So Thursday, so you got to see the vendor hall and all the crazy that is that. And then Teras, so you guys did, so this I do want to hear about. So then you guys go to Artemis. And of course, Artemis, for those who don't know, is the Starship Bridge Simulator. And of course, you got Garrett Ensign Kim there. So how did that whole play out? How did
we like to call him Captain Kim now.
So did you feel any pressure, Garrett, that you're like, I've got to perform here because I'm on Star Trek?
I know. You know what? It's funny because I'd asked the Artemis guys before. I said, who from the Trek world actually played the simulation here? And they said, Will Wheaton and Tim Russ. So here, Tim Kmart Russ was the other person who played it. So, and I said, well, who did better of the two? They said, Tim Russ did. Tuvok did. I said, okay. All right.
Well, he's a Vulcan, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is Vulcan in real life, so it makes sense that he's better.
That's what I heard.
Than Will, first time doing it. So it was my goal to be far superior to both of their performances. But I think I was worse than both of their performances. My last simulation, I think I actually blew up the Starship base. There was a base, that was on our side that I actually torpedoed by mistake. So it was just, oh my Lord. It took a while to get the hang of that. I mean, it was definitely something that I thought was enjoyable. It was fun. And I would love to be able to see more in terms of maybe multiple ships all working together, which is kind of what we did at the very end, which was neat. But we were there for hours though, and I just kept switching crews. A new group of fans would pop in, and I was the captain. And after a while, I got really tired of being the captain. I was like, you know what? I'll be science officer.
Can I be the ensign? Can that work out?
Yeah, I'll be ensign again. But they didn't let me do that. So I stayed at the captain's chair the whole time. And
so did you blow up that starbase kind of like in protest?
No,
actually, that wasn't a statement.
It wasn't a protest. I think my crew member that was in charge of weapons and tactical. I don't think he understood the whole thing that he had to target you had to actually tap the screen to target the enemy vessel, and he just released a torpedo, or he released it without targeting it, so it just went straight to the station. So that's what happened.
There you go. Rookie mistake.
Yeah, and then who's the guy that runs Artemis? What's his name?
Brian Johnson.
Is that? I don't know.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, so he actually came in. He was watching that last segment.
Actually, I was watching too, by the way.
He goes, court martial.
Nice.
So that was, at least I've actually provided story fodder for the rest of time for Artemis. They're like, well, remember the time when Ensign Kim blew up the good guys, our station? Yeah,
that's hardly fair.
Well, no, it was excellent because he wrote me my farewell speech for me. It was perfect, actually. As you know, I was the admiral that would. There's 4 bridges going on at once. Okay,
right.
With one crew outside, waiting to get in.
Correct.
And I was the admiral looking at how the invasion was happening. And so there were sectors that I would send crews to. So as the crews got, better and better, because you got better and better at that game, I think that was one of the good things about doing it for so long, that if you just went in there and did it once, you'd be like, oh, I was so shitty. And that wasn't, it was so quick. I couldn't get better, but we had it. So we got better and better. Right.
But you kept giving us harder and harder simulations though, right?
Well, kind of.
Blame Teras. Hashtag blame Teras.
Well, there were sectors, right? So I had to keep on putting ships into the correct sector to make sure that it was stemming the invasion, right?
Right.
And each sector had a certain amount of ships. So what I would do is when the crews got better and better, I would throw them into the harder and harder sectors, right? But there would be always a couple of sectors that would only have 1 or 2 ships in, and I would always send Garrett's to the sector that had 1 or 2 ships.
Nice. So, well, you must have been doing something right then for those kind of orders, which is, So let me ask you this: did you get to do the bridge shake, Garrett? Because last time you were on the show, you described to us how you were taught the proper way to shake.
Yeah, no, we didn't do the bridge shake. We should have. We should have. It was. I tell you, it was still fun though. Regardless,
that's awesome.
It was a fun time. So that was Thursday night. Is that right?
That was Thursday night.
Didn't we go to something right after that, too?
Yeah, we went to the BattleTech pods at 2
that's a
wow. So after several hours of Artemis, you then stuffed him into a pod.
In a pod.
And had him blow up giant mechs. How did that go for you, Garrett?
I chose the largest, most fortified, slowest, and I should have picked the fast one instead. That was a mistake. So, it was fine. It was just chaos. You didn't know what was going on. I mean, I was being tailed by one person just shooting me from behind the whole time because I was so slow. I couldn't turn around fast enough to get whoever it was. So, but, it is what it is. I think that they should have some type of basic tutorial at least. They don't really tell you anything.
They kind of throw you into that one. It's just like good luck, So
they do. Yeah. And I just thought that was not so cool. I thought they could have given a little bit more tutorial. So
I actually killed myself twice.
Did you?
I'm no good at that game.
It's a hard game. You got to play a little bit. Yeah.
I will say one thing more about Artemis, though. I think that was as a tour director, I always love it when people are having a really great time. And Dice Duel, everybody was smiling and laughing and cheering. We were doing that. So I sat back at one point and said, I win, as a person this is one of my fringe benefits. Right. And Artemis was the same thing. Everybody, there was captains that were standing up. Maybe that's what you should have done, Garrett.
I should have stood up. Yeah. Darn it. That was the difference. Standing.
Yeah, it's all about standing.
It is. I'll be honest. There was one time where I got to captain my own ship on Voyager. It was the Nightingale. I remember that. The episode was called Nightingale. And I had to jump onto this alien ship and captain that. And you actually have to think about how to sit properly as the captain. You can't just slouch. You have to have a little bit of I don't know, je ne sais quoi while you're sitting to be more captainly, which is kind of odd. Whereas if you're standing, you don't have to worry about. You just stand straight up and you're good.
So in Artemis, were you sitting properly? Were you captainly in Artemis? Or were you
I think maybe I was focused way too much on sitting properly as opposed to just playing the Dawn simulation.
That could hurt.
That could hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when did we do the Starship Troopers RPG, Teras? What day was that?
Yeah, we did that Thursday before Artemis.
Yes, cool. So Thursday before we did a Starship Troopers RPG. And the guy, it's so funny because the way we sat down, it was Teras, myself, and this other guy, and then the guy who was you don't say dungeon master, but you said what do you say, game master? I don't know what's the terminology. Yeah. So it was was 1, 2. Yeah, it was was that before or 3? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. So the 4 of us formed an L of old age is what we formed, and then the other L, which fit us perfectly like a Tetris block, was literally, it was like 18. We asked them, we go, how old are you? The guy's like, this guy's 17. It was 17, 18, 19, 19. So it was the L of youth and the L of old dudes is what it was. And then we played the game that way.
Did you
remember that, Teras? I mean,
yes, it was totally
perfectly like that.
Did you acquit our generation well?
The older guy next to me, it's so funny because at the very end of the game, he realized who the hell I was, and he was like, "Oh, whoa!" And he actually turned out he was going to Dragon Con too. So I saw him at Dragon Con. He came up and said hi to me. So He was the guy with the dogs, Teras. Remember, he had the two dogs sitting there.
So, did he have the dogs at DragonCon too?
Yeah, he had the dogs up in DragonCon too. He had these two white, I think they're poodles, maybe, or something. I don't know, but he had the two dogs there too, and he came to the Miss Star Trek Universe pageant that I host. So that was nice to see him there. But so that was interesting playing that game for a little bit, and then we went to Artemis after that. Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, very cool. So did Old Age and Treachery win? Did you guys do a good job of acquitting yourselves for our generation there?
Yeah, we did okay on that one. We were all right. But we were, obviously we were in a team with the youth also, so we were together. But we did okay. I had fun with that one.
He was Garrett was a robot. His name was Gort.
Yeah. I was a robot. That's true. Because the thing is, the game master, the guy running the game, he goes, okay, who's had experience with this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I've never played this at all. He's like, all right, well, you just be the robot then. Okay. just be the robot. He's like, since you have no clue what to do here, just play the robot. You'll be fine. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
that was fun.
So that was Friday. That was Thursday. What'd you guys do Friday?
Yeah, what did we do Friday? Oh, I was supposed to go to True Dungeon, but I kept telling Teras, I go, I need my beauty sleep. So, and he was like, no, let's go to the mech. That's when we went to the mech game, whatever that wasted our time at, And so I was so tired, and I told him, I said, I may not make True Dungeon tomorrow morning, and sure enough, I didn't. And then I heard from everybody, you missed the best part. Oh, you should have been in True Dungeon.
It was a pretty good part.
Yeah. Yes, and so now I'm bummed out about that, but I'm hoping that as long as Teras has that tour again, I'll jump on again and come back and make sure I make it to True Dungeon next year. So that's my goal. So
very cool.
So that started out True Dungeon, and then after that, when I did wake up, I did get to play the Spartacus board game.
Oh, what'd you think?
I liked it. I really did. I liked it a lot. That was a fun one. So I played that with about 4 or 5 other people. So very enjoyable. So good time with that too. So
very cool. Then what was that most of Friday, or what else did you guys do?
Yeah, what else did we do?
So that's when you signed during.
I went to Fat Dragon Games, their booth, and I signed. Are you guys familiar with Fat Dragon? Those guys at all? Yeah. So they basically, their concept of what they're selling in terms of, the scenery or landscaping is just amazing. It's very easy to do. You print it up on your own paper. I mean, it's kind of neat to see that it's so basic and so quick and so also, definitely it looked good. All the stuff that they had. I really was impressed with how the ease of use, the ease of fabricating the walls and everything that they had there looked really cool. So they gave me
for the listeners, that Fat Dragon Games are the guys that make the printout terrain that you print out at home, and then it comes with instructions on, and it really folds in a really cool looking 3-dimensional terrain. It's very neat. And
use bobby pins, and that's it.
Yeah, and they gave each of your travelers a dice tower, right? Am I right? Yeah,
that's right.
So,
you just
very cool.
Went to the site, type it in, and bang, you had your dice tower. And it's kind of cool, actually. The way it's interesting the way they fold together, for sure. They've really gave that a lot of thought.
It's all with stuff from household. You don't have it's just regular Elmer's glue and some bobby pins, and you're done. So
gamer origami. That's what I say.
Yes,
indeed.
They cleared out a little space for me there. They were going to clear the whole table out, and I said, I don't really need that much space. When I go to conventions and do signings, I bring one standard Starfleet looking shot of me just standing there, and the other one I'm holding a phaser rifle, right? So I do the action, the badass shot, and then just the regular Starfleet shot. And so I just have those two choices. I mean, I'm sure everybody that's listening has been to a convention where they walk up to an actor's table and they've got 57 different choices of everything known to man that they've ever acted in their lifetime, And this was me on Happy Days, when I did that, I guest star with the Fonz. And I'm like, no, you don't need all that. So I only need a tiny little space at the table. So
I heard you're kind of expensive, though, Garrett.
At least $5 more than you could have been.
I know.
That's what I heard too.
that recurring number of $5 just keep coming up. It's funny because when I first met Gates McFadden, who played the Doctor on TNG, it was at a gas station in Los Angeles. I had just been cast on Voyager, and I was getting some gas, and sure enough, I see her. She's like in the office, frantically talking. She's just gesticulating, talking to whoever's the clerk is, blah 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 blah. Then she comes out and she's searching through her car, and then she gets out, and I walk up. I go, "Hi, you're Gates McFadden." And she kind of looks at me, and I thought that she thought I was a fan asking for an autograph. She has since told me that she did recognize who I was, and I said, "Oh, it's me. It's Garrett Wang. I'm Ensign Kim. I'm the new Trek cast, that took you guys your place." And she goes, "Oh my gosh. I'm late to go to LAX. I'm supposed to be filming in Hawaii at my flight. I've got to go, blah, blah, blah." And I don't have enough to cover the gas that I just pumped in the car. So she borrowed $5 from me that day. I remember that. Right. So that $5 just keeps recurring in my life, right? So literally, she said, "Thank you so much. I'll pay you back." And sure enough, it was probably like about 6 or 7 months later, but an envelope showed up in my trailer at Paramount Studios saying, to Garrett from Gates, your $5, thank you. So I helped save Gates McFadden's life.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
That's great. Did you now you had to fly out, you said, to some Dragon Con meetings on Saturday. So was that the last game you got in, or was there anything else you were able to squeeze in there?
Teras, I can't remember. Did I get anything else in?
No, I think that's it. We did some gaming at the farewell dinner, and again that we do. Actually, you know what? I'd like to mention that we gamed.
I did play Mars Attacks too. I did play that.
Right.
Oh yeah, right.
Mars Attacks, and you went down. You talked to Steven at his booth also at that time, right?
Yes. At Stronghold, right?
Yeah, Stronghold Games.
Yeah.
There is one other thing that we added to the tour this year that I think is really important to mention is that we did each night we got gaming space, like a guaranteed gaming space at the JW Marriott.
Oh, very cool.
And so we were gaming at the High Velocity each night. So there were some off games that we had. People would come and go. Garrett came and went also. So there were some games going on late at night every night. And we also did that at the farewell dinner too. So that was really special then.
That was really cool.
And it was a really good time. And you know what? Out of the multitude of thank yous, I definitely have to thank Garrett for being on the tour. That was really a honor and a blast having him, especially when we could point fingers at him when he did so awful at articles.
Why, thank you, Teras. Yeah, Teras was a little worried because of his final farewell, that speech that he had. He later told me, "Oh my God, I forgot to thank you. I forgot to have you." And I didn't really think anything of it. I'm like, that's cool. I didn't go like, that darn Teras. This must be how Canadians really are.
That's on the show.
They think we're beneath them. They think those filthy Americans, they don't even know what it's like to be real like we are in Canada. So no. I didn't have a problem with it.
I did feel bad though, that's for sure.
It was funny. That was overall, honestly, I had a great time. Would I do it again? Of course, most definitely. But for me, it's not that hard to convince me to go to a convention. Being into most fandoms already as it is, it's just something. It's just a natural extension of who I am to go to a convention. So, and I think that's why it worked so well with me coming on Geek Nation tours for the first time, Teras. Because honestly, I mean, unless I don't know, I really can't think of anyone else that you could ask other than maybe Will Wheaton, maybe Tim Russ, would be interested in doing that. But it's $5
He's positioning.
I was going to say, I might be able to get them for cheaper.
You get a cheaper hotel room for Tim Russ. He wouldn't mind.
Well,
awesome.
Teras and Garrett in particular, thank you so much for coming back on and sharing your Gen Con experiences. Where I'm glad that that you had a great time and it lived up to your expectations. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Can I plug my Twitter address?
Oh, yes, please do. Yeah, if people want to
do.
follow up with you, what's the best ways to keep in touch with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm always on Twitter, guys. Facebook is just an old, archaic dinosaur at this point in my life. I may connect my Facebook with my Twitter feed, but it's at Garrett, Garrett, R for the middle initial, R as in Richard, and then WANG. So at Garrett, RWANG.
Which we know now is pronounced Wang.
If you omit the R, you will end up on the Twitter account of some kid in Singapore. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. It's not me. It's not me. That's all.
Excellent.
But yes, guys, thank you so much for having me on again. Had a great time.
Oh, always welcome.
Especially with your super busy schedule.
Yes, thank you so much, Teras. And so is it the comm season now, or what's the next convention you're going to be at?
Well, here's the deal. Tomorrow, on Friday, I fly to Hong Kong.
Oh, jeez.
To go visit some relatives.
Okay.
A little quick relatives trip, uncles, cousins, whatnot, that are living in Hong Kong. And then I come back. And then that following weekend, after I come back, I will be going to Rose City Comic Con in Portland, Oregon. And the weekend after that will be Edmonton Expo in Edmonton, Canada. And the weekend after that will be Hamilton Comic Con, Hamilton, Ontario. And then the weekend after that will be New York City Comic Con. And then the weekend, not as an official guest, but as a kind of more of an attendee. But I will be at somebody's booth at some point for sure. And then after that, I go to Taiwan for my grandmother's 101st birthday.
Oh,
so,
congratulations to her. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's hard to do to get to 101 these days.
I would think
so. So really, it's a full schedule for me all the way up to the end of the year. So, yeah, I'm going to try to schedule a little. I really don't like to do back to back con. That's pretty tough.
Yeah,
so. But I'll tell you one thing: it prevents con blues from setting in. So,
right.
Con blues when they hit hard when I left Dragon Con. My goodness, it was a tough one to handle. But the good thing is you always can look forward to the next convention, and in my case, it's pretty quickly afterward. It's quite quick after. So, yeah. So that's it for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Garrett, thank you so much again, and best of luck with your travels for the remainder of the year there.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next year at GenCon. Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully,
we'll be there.
And my goal will be to play a game with you. That's gonna. I thought I was gonna play a game this time. Being your comms officer was cool. I will say that was one of my top experiences. But
yay!
I want to get across the board from you next summer.
Okay, we should do that for sure.
Cool, awesome.
Were you thinking of Mutinous Thoughts?
No, absolutely not. I was too busy taking pictures.
Blame Teras.
He's just a troublemaker.
Hashtag blame Teras.
He's breaking every stereotype of a Canadian you can think of.
He is. Mutinous thoughts?
Yeah, wow. The tour ends and he's all of a sudden evil Teras. It's like you have a beard and a mustache now.
Teras, yeah. Did you grow a goatee over the last week?
Mirror universe now? All right.
I think he has a goatee,
mirror.
Horns and a pitchfork. He's got it now.
There you go.
Mirror, Teras.
That's right. Mirror. All right.
So that's a year from now.
We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks a lot, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you, Garrett.
Bye-bye.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, Total Fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hello everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. And this week's shout out is to our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. You can support the show too. Head over to patreon.com/the D6Generation. So this week I had one of those kind of neat moments where my nerd world and my car world once again join together in a beautiful way. It doesn't often happen that the two cross, but when it does, it's generally pretty awesome. And this, I had to share this with you guys because you guys can all see this, and I think most of you will appreciate this. There's these guys called the Piano Guys, and surprise, they play the piano. Don't get all bored and tune out and think this is classical music that your mom made you listen to that you hate, because that's not what they do. They do covers and their own renditions of really really fun, popular musical tunes. They do everything. Like they did a Star Wars parody like about 3 years ago. But the thing is, they don't just play the music and it's this beautiful music. It's sort of got almost like a pop kind of vibe to it. They were playing, when they were doing the whole Star Wars one, they dressed up like Jedi Knights and they made the bows look like lightsabers. That's the kind of fun their videos have. But they just had a new one that came out that is just amazing. It's called Batman Evolution. And what they've done is they have the 3 most iconic Batmobiles, the one from the TV show in the 60s, the one from the 89 Batman movie, and the one from The Dark Knight, the Tumbler. They've got all 3 of those. Like, I don't know how they got them, but they've got all 3 of those cars, and they play the Batman theme, but they sort of morph it from the one you heard in the 60s to the one you heard in the 80s to the one you heard for the trilogy. And it just leads one into the other, but it's really well done. They've got I think it said there were over 100 different tracks for the cello that they did with this, and then there's the piano playing in there too. And through the whole thing, what makes it so much fun is, aside from the fact that the music really is great, and if you're a comic book fan and you're a Batman fan, it's just awesome. And that you get to see them playing with, the Batmobiles in the background as they change from one generation to the next, so does the whole set. So it starts off and they're in the Batcave, like with the 1966 Batmobile there, and the whole set is the Batcave, and they're even dressed kind of like hip, 60s dudes, and they're not dressed in modern clothes at all, and they're playing, and then, there's even like biff, pow, all this stuff that pops up on the screen. It morphs into the one from the 80s, and suddenly the whole scene changes and it's dark, and you have the 1989 Batmobile. It gets much darker, and it looks like it could be right out of that film. And at the very end, you get all the way to the trilogy, and it's just incredible. The entire, I think it's like a 6-minute video. It all sort of finishes up where they're on a rooftop. They've got all 3 of the Batmobiles there. One guy is playing piano. One guy is playing the cello. It's at night. They clearly filmed this with like a drone or a helicopter or something. They're all there. The music is fantastic. There's a little bit of like snow drifting down to give it a little bit of mood. And then the lights pop on. All the Batmobiles turn on their headlights. It's really fun. It's cool. And if you go to their YouTube site and just look up the Piano Guys, you'll see you will then waste several hours just listening to and watching their videos because they're so fun. There's one they do with Lindsay Sterling, who you guys might be familiar with. She plays the violin, and she does all sorts of videos of her own that are really super nerdy, but she does this violin versions of like video game things, like the music from Legend of Zelda and stuff. They team up with her for one that's Mission Impossible, and it's like they're all spies in a mission, and it's hilarious. And with her talent too, she's just an incredible violinist. So it's great to see. So if you guys are looking to see something a little different, and if you're a Batman fan especially, but even if you're just a superhero fan, go check out the Piano Guys on YouTube. The Batmobile video is the newest one out there, but scroll through and you'll find all sorts of stuff to enjoy. So that is what we have for you today. Enjoy a little Batman, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Hey, and now we would like to talk to you about our friends over at Conquistador Games.
They have some great games, Craig. Road to Enlightenment. My personal favorite, The New Science. I love being a scientist back in the Renaissance era and getting my discoveries out, getting the Age of Enlightenment rolling through science. That's how I do it.
Right.
Also, don't forget tomorrow. I mean,
absolutely.
So many good games. Conquistador Games is just a great game. They burned the theme into the box. Correct.
That's right. It's all about theme and quick, fun gameplay with Conquistador.
It really is. So you can't go wrong. So head on over to cqgames.com because that's how I remember it, because I can't spell Conquistador. Conquistador Games also get you there, but CQ is the way I remember it.
CQ is definitely the way to go because just like their games, they've narrowed everything down. They've cut everything down to the core of just having fun. So not Conquistador Games to get there.com, but just CQ Games. So it's just the core of the fun. It's almost like a metaphor, if you will, for their gaming design philosophy.
Seriously. And if you can get New Science to the table, do so. It is such a good game, Craig. Such a good game.
And that's, of course, by Conquistador Games. Get there from cqgames.com.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, And this is the Hollywood Minute.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. Welcome to another edition of the Hollywood Minute. I'm your host, Rafe Granger. Let's see, beverage of choice tonight is a nice, cool glass of ice water with ice in a mason jar because it is a little bit unseasonably hot here in New England. Temperatures hit about 86 degrees in the sun. I mean, don't get me wrong, we New Englanders aren't complaining because we know we're going to get slammed with snow any time now, but when I was watching my son's football game, it was a little hot out there on the baking field. I'm not going to lie. Of course, I'm sure they were a lot hotter. And if anybody's wondering, yes, my son's team won, and he scored a touchdown and had a pretty big defensive tackle, which was cool. Although he's upset with himself because at some point during the game he fumbled. Okay, so let's see. Topics of conversation today. Can't get over the new books for D&D 5th. If you have not gone out and bought them, I know Russ is also raving about them. I want to second that emotion. The monster manual is just pure joy to flip through. The art is incredible, very nostalgic. Looking forward to the DM's guide and the new DM's screen. A little point of pride for me is I have my old AD&D GM screens still, which I still use when I Dungeon Master. Got a new crew trying out D&D 5th on, a couple Tuesdays from now, so I'll save some more talk about that. The other thing I want to try to do, and I haven't done it, is I want to play Lord of the Rings, the collectible card game, by myself. I want to do a solo game, and every time I have a spare moment, I look at my pile of cards, and I just can't get over the threshold. I'm like, I've got to sort the cards, and I don't really know how some of the mechanics work. I've been watching some YouTube videos. I've been watching Steve McLaughlin over there at WWPD Network. He's got a new thing where he blogs and records his games that he can play on the computer. So I have that scheduled to watch, which I haven't done. And there's a couple. I did watch the Fantasy Flight tutorial, but I had a question on traveling, not to a location, but not questing, but traveling. So I have a question on that, which I haven't looked up. So I really want to try that out. I also need to get some more editing, but I've got to make a choice on a video editing software program in order to upload to my YouTube channel. So I do see some people subscribing to that. That's fun. I've got lots of raw video that I can splice together. Again, I just have to have a spare moment of thought to pick which video editing program I'm going to do. And let's see. I think that's about it, really. I mean, you heard me on the show, so I don't have really much anything extra. Also been wanting to sit down and play A Wolf Among Us. I'm on the 3rd episode for that, and then after that, I can finish my Walking Dead. That's also preventing me from getting the Xbox One, along with the price tag. I mean, I do see the price tag keep dropping, but so far there's not anything I want to play on the Xbox One that I can't play on the 360. I mean, I hear Greg Ivany and a couple people saying that Destiny is really cool, but I just don't seem to have the time to really immerse myself into an MMO. When I sit down to a computer, I'm happy with League of Legends, and I'm happy with A Wolf Among Us. So let's see, that's it. Just going to keep it short, going to keep it real, yo. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on the D6G Hollywood on Twitter. The blog is jimmydjango.com, and I've actually been doing a lot better with it. I've been doing one post a month, which I'm pretty psyched about. And the YouTube channel is Rafe Hollywood Granger on YouTube. Hey, I'll see y'all and talk to y'all in a couple weeks.
Now it's time to talk about our friends at Game Salute.
Hooah!
Yeah, over at GameSalute.com. These are the guys.
Saluting games.
They help the little indie designers, the little studios, if you will, building awesome games. Get them out to you guys, the public, through their extremely good knowledge of Kickstarter and their understanding of the board game industry and the process. And they can hook you up with the talent you need to get your board game finished and out the door and shipping. And Craig, boy, do they really have a lot of cool games in their stable.
They have got a lot of games going on right now, Russ, and they've got some that you'll recognize. King's Forge was a big one for them.
Oh, that's doing really well. That's a really hot game.
That was actually what Dan May was demoing for them at Gen Con. So that's obviously the game where you're building stuff, you're trying to craft things.
Mm-hmm.
Epic Death is a card game that sounds intriguing. You're going to be fighting a lot of monsters and gathering up a bunch of treasure, but then the key thing is you want to die epically fighting a big giant monster. Nothing Personal, of course, is in its second edition. Who knew?
Right.
Dreaming Spires sounds very familiar if you want to try to recreate Oxford, the Oxford University, and then all the different cool people who have been there and been connected with the university. So it's just an Alien Frontiers. It just goes on and on. Their front page right now is just loaded with lots of cool games that cover the gamut of theme.
They brought back Walkstar too, Craig. Another great game.
Walkstar, I saw that.
Yeah, a lot of great games in their stable. So head on over to GameSloot.com. And here's the thing: if you go to their site and decide you want to buy a game from them, make sure you put in the code D6G154.
But let us goad you into it.
Yes, do that exactly, and you will get some serious discounts on these awesome games.
Indeed.
This is the D6 Generation Podcast. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what? Who writes this? That's impossible.
Hey, welcome back. And now it's time to talk about some of the new hotness at Gen Con. And Craig, this was definitely one of the hotnesses there.
It absolutely was. I went and I tried it out very first day that the hall was open, and I tried it out with all of the Nerd Herders guys, and there was like a weird, funny little thing, like none of them could pronounce it.
Yeah, how would you pronounce it?
Then I tried it with you, and it was, you loved it, and the funny thing, you can't pronounce it. And so right up front, let's say today we're doing a full-blown D6G review of Golem Arcana.
Golem Arcana. Say it with us together.
Golem
Arcana. Yes, this is
That's right.
This game is attracting everyone's attention because it is a merging, and these guys aren't the first ones to try this, but it's a merging of a miniature war game, pre-painted, so with a electronic gizmo, in this case, Android and iOS devices. So let's get into this here. So this game, Golem Arcana, how'd I do? Good?
Yeah, it was
all right.
good.
All right, we'll take it. Released this Gen Con 2014. It's coming out now. It should be in store shelves by the time you hear this, at least the base game and some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And yet another Kickstarter.
Now, yes. Now, this is interesting because in the past, the folks that have tried this, like Excellus is one of the ones we got involved with a couple years ago at Gen Con. We interviewed them, and you saw it hang around for a little while. And those have been by folks who are really miniature gamers first, and they tried to add software to it. This is actually by a company called Harebrained Schemes, and if that name sounds familiar to you, it should. Teras, do you know of Jordan Weissman? Does his name sound familiar to you?
I do. That sounds familiar, but I cannot point it.
We like to call this
direction.
ambush journalism.
Yes, it's ambush journalism. So you might know Jordan because he was the founder of FASA, the gaming company.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, so they did... he was involved with that, Virtual World Entertainment. He was involved with WizKids. So it sounds like a lot of board games, but also he was involved in BattleTech, Mech Warrior, Shadowrun, Crimson Skies, and then the Harebrained Schemes guys. They have now written 3 very well-received apps for mobile. One was Shadowrun Returns, which most people know about. If you're a Shadowrun fan at all, you have played this. It's fantastic on mobile devices. It's also on PC. They created Crimson Steam Pirates, an app that I raved about. It's basically steampunk Navy combat, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And they also did Strike Fleet Omega, which was another fun little sci-fi space time killer, cool little game. So these guys know apps. They have the founder of FASA, so they know games, and they brought it together in a really interesting way. So let's talk about that a little bit. But first, we should get into the background, the fluff, if you will, the what gets you engaged in the game. So could you give us, Craig, a dramatic reading of this paragraph here about the background of Golem
I could do this without even reading it because they had movies introductory like trailer style movies running at their large booth all of Gen Con, and the trailer constantly starts with this. So I'm going to do it in the mode of the woman who is actually narrating the movie.
There you go.
But you have to pronounce it wrong.
No.
No.
No, I don't. Okay, here we go. The Great Khan is dead, plunging the world of Aretsu into total war. The Khan's heirs fight amongst themselves for control of his shattered dominion as the Durrani Empire mobilizes to regain lost lands and honor. Their most fearsome weapons are golems, arcane war machines created and mastered by powerful sorcerers. As the world of Aretsu descends into chaos, now it's your turn to take command of a golem army and fight for honor, glory, and riches.
Very.
The Great Khan is dead.
Wait. No.
It just happened. It just went over and over. I swear to God, my brains were dribbling out my ears after the 5th iteration. I went to sleep that night, and all I could think is, the Great Khan is dead.
Imagine the poor people working.
I've never heard dead pronounced with 2 syllables before. Dead.
Well,
but anyway, it was all that aside, it was a very cool narration of a very cool video that just happened to keep running over and over again. And actually, the guys who were running the booth and the guys who created the game, and one of them, and I'm terribly afraid I don't remember the guy's name. He's one of the 2 main guys in the whole company, was actually talking to me like, I wrote the thing and I can't stand it anymore.
Right.
The Great Khan is dead. But anyway, let's move along.
So what's neat about this and the way they're pitching it, and you don't really get it from that little bit of fluff. It's really unfortunate because actually most of the published fluff doesn't really get to the coolest part, I think, of the game in terms of background material, which is they talk about the fact that it's a point-based army building game. So you're going to use points to craft a force, much like any miniature war game. And you're fielding an army of golems, but what they don't state explicitly, except for when you get a little farther into the book, is there's knights who control the golems, but they still don't tell you that these knights actually pilot the golems from inside the golem itself. So they're actually in there driving the golems forward, which I think is fantastic, which reminds me of a particular film. I don't know, Craig, does it remind you of anything at all? Maybe? A little bit?
It did after last night when you said that.
It did, because, you know what it is? It's basically...
Sadly, the soundtrack is not well known enough that
it is.
Most people have no idea what you're trying to do.
They should know it. Oh, they do now. So that is basically... It is basically medieval Pacific Rim, is what this is. Which is awesome because I love Pacific Rim to the point where I listen to the soundtrack over and over again. See, so I recognize it.
There you go.
But yes, it's exactly that. So you've got pilots actually sitting in the golems. Am I doing that right?
Every now and then. I would say you're hitting it about 50% of the time.
Okay, good. I'll take that. Driving it, and some of them have one pilot, some of them multiple pilots, kind of like Pacific Rim or Voltron. And most of them feel like they're about the size of like a Voltron lion, roughly, plus or minus. But then there's these occasional colossals, which are just epically huge with 3 pilots, and they're the size of, about the size of a War Machine Colossal, let's be honest. They're very, very big.
Much larger than that.
Yeah.
Much larger than that to scale. Not on the table.
I mean on the table. I mean physically, a physical actual size.
These are all to scale to represent them, how big they are.
Yeah, but you're right, Craig. To Craig's point, the actual relationship size of the pilot to the vehicle is, the pilot is tiny, teeny, tiny. Like he would fit in the head or a very small chair on the top of the head. So it is almost like Voltron size in terms of scale.
They're enormous. The little men look like they're about 6 millimeter figures.
Yeah.
So imagine a 6 millimeter figure like Epic 40K size and like one of the larger, maybe not a colossal, but almost the size of a War Machine Colossal. Mm-hmm. So if a War Machine Colossal was played in a game of 6 millimeter sci-fi, then you've basically got, an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and the physical size of the pieces, as Craig mentioned, are about the size of actual War Machine Warjacks, and the big ones about the size of Colossal. So they're pretty big size plastic pieces. They are pre-painted, and I think they look pretty solid. What did you, Teras, did you see any of these models up close?
I saw a couple. I know that there was a big hype about this game when we were on the tour. I didn't make it to the booth, unfortunately, because I wanted to give it a try. But Yeah, the miniatures are cool. That's for sure. This very original looking.
Yeah, I thought so. It's definitely
kind of a lot of them had.
It's an art direction you don't see
a lot of things that I
very
didn't
often.
think of.
Yeah, it's an interesting amalgam of different sort of arts. So like one of the big ones has like sort of like almost like a Greek pillar dome, almost like a
look Byzantine.
Yeah, very Byzantine. You're right. So let's talk a little bit about what you get in the box, and we talk about the value, what the models look like. So what's interesting about this is you get these really interesting models that are pre-painted, and I think they're pretty solidly pre-painted. We'll talk about that in a second. And the starter box comes with a stylus. So the game itself is played mostly with a stylus, which is this little, it's about the size of a fat pen, or like maybe a whiteboard marker, maybe a little bigger. And it's got some battery, and the batteries are included in the set. So you got the batteries and the stylus, and more about how that works in a little bit. You're going to get 6 of these really cool figures, 3 for each sort of side in the starter faction. But the factions work a little interesting. I'll talk about that in a second. You're going to get a bunch of these, I thought, pretty nice double-sided, 6 of them cardboard map tiles, and they're pretty good size, right? And they're
very, it's I would say they're not cardboard. I don't know what they are exactly, but they're solid boards.
Made of nice material, really high quality. They don't seem to warp or bend at all.
No.
Look very sturdy. They are double-sided, so they're reversible. So each one's numbered 1 through 6, and then they have an A and a B side. So when you use the app, and the app tells you here's the scenario and here's the way to lay the terrain out, you can quickly find the tiles and lay them out properly. You're also going to get a card for each of your golems. So like War Machine or Malifaux, there is a card that is paired to each miniature, and you keep it on the side there, and it has your stats for your miniature on it and their abilities and all that kind of stuff. You've also got these 2 control cards, which are also playing card size, and they have sort of generic things on them that let you do things during the game. Because what you're going to do with this is you're going to be able to tap that stylus on different parts of the card to sort of tell the software what you're trying to give your golem's order to do. And there's also this sort of generic card that you can tap to like end your turn or look up some rules or tap it to do some other powers and things like that. So you got one of those as well. You're also going to have 2 10-sided dice. So the app does the dice rolling for you, but you can also flip a mode where you actually roll your own dice, and you can tap out the results on the control card and enter them that way as well. So if you're the kind of player who likes to roll your own physical dice, they do allow that in this game. Also comes with a lore book and quick start guide. More about that in a bit, but it's got a little bit of fluff in it. There's not a lot of fluff with this game yet. Even on their website, there's a couple short stories, very short, like 1-page PDFs. So there's enough to give you flavor, but not a lot of depth yet. Hopefully more of that comes. The recommended value for this, you're going to get 6 of these pre-painted plastic dudes. You get a digital stylus. It's Bluetooth, by the way. Connects to your favorite device. You're going to get these 6 tiles, dice, the cards. I think the artwork's great on all this stuff. $79.99, so $80. Craig, what did you think about the value for that?
The value for it is pretty good as far as I'm concerned. The 6, I would say when you're looking at the pre-painted, the quality of the pre-paints would probably be about on par with like WizKids pre-paints, I would say. Or if you remember the old Arcane Legions pre-paints. So it's not it's not going to win any golden demons, but it's pretty cool. And it's much nicer than just unpainted models. There's literally no model, what do you call it? Like hobby aspect to the, there's no barrier to entry in this game. You've got really decent looking models right up front. One of the things design wise that I really liked that I think goes into the value is that there's multiple ways to play. Not only can you roll the dice yourself, but the base of each model has zones on it that key to all the model's abilities and its walking speed and things like that. Its card also has zones that key to all those different events. So when I was playing Russ, for instance, Russ liked to touch the stylus to his model's base. Like if he wanted to shoot me with the laser beam or whatever, he'd touch the
Diamond beam, which you have to shout.
There you go. Yeah, you do have to. Apparently, if you're Russ. And I liked actually using my cards because I could like just read out my cards and I could kind of get a better idea. Russ has played the game a few more times than me, so I literally you just tap the ability on the card and the app says, okay, you're going to use that ability. It's going to cost you this many action points. It's going to do this. And here's the range. And it shows you on the app what's in range for that ability. So it was really, really great, right at your fingertips, and it would do all of that either touching the card or the model's base. So for $80, I think if this is at all a kind of game you might be interested in, I think you kind of owe it to yourself to give it a shot. So well worth the price of admission, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree from what I've heard. Always with pre-painted, I always say the same thing. I mean, it's never going to be up to at your standard, or so all you have to do is add a layer of paint or dry brush it or whatever, and these would look stellar. Some of these models would look unbelievable if you really, crack down.
It wouldn't take much.
Some extra
painting. The concepts are very cool, very very cool.
Because they're, like I said, I didn't mean to sound negative, because that's not what they're odd, and they're new kind of feel. They really have that statuesque type of feel, but in a really kind of cool and different way than you've seen before.
Yeah, and I like the fluff. I mean, there aren't a lot of miniature games where you're driving giant golems with pilots, with knights piloting them at that
I can
scale.
only name one, really.
Right? And what's cool is too, there's each of the different groups of them that come in sets of 3 basically, and they have different art direction. They're basically, the golems are made out of different stuff. So you have guys that are made sort of out of metal, then you have ones that are made out of plant materials, so like tree golems, and then you have some that are made out of look like bone, sort of like they're not really undead, but they get that look to them. So there's different looks to them, and they work in different ways, and it's really neat. But what's interesting about that too is the factions in this game. It reminds me a little bit of BattleTech. There's the other one. But it's sci-fi instead of fantasy. In that, in BattleTech, if you remember the factions in BattleTech, the different houses, some of the mech designs are shared by different houses, right? So certain houses use only certain mech designs, but other mechs are very common and interchange. The same is true with these guys. So when you pick a faction, it's going to limit which of the golems you can choose, but some golems are shared by different factions. But also, when you pick that golem, more about Army Builder later, the kinds of knights you can put in it, though, are specific to the faction, and other abilities you can give to your golem are specific. So you kind of, as you customize your golems, you're going to be able to choose things that are related to your faction as well. So there's not like a clear divider that says, it's not like War Machine or 40K where all the big, rounded shoulders, high-tech blue guys are Signar, and, all the other giant heavy dudes are Khador. It's more of along the lines of, these heavy guys can use this faction. This other faction leans towards lighter jacks or golems, and there's other things you can do as well. So more about that in a little bit. So to play this game, though, let's say you just get the starter box and you're ready to rock. What you're going to do is you're going to need to download the app. Now, the app comes in 2 flavors today. You can get it in iOS or Android, whether it's a tablet or a phone. So don't think you need a tablet to play this. When I first played it at GenCon, I bought the game, and then my daughters wanted to play it, so we downloaded it on my daughter's phone. It worked great. No problem. I put it on my phone. It worked great. I like it a little better on the iPad because you can set it next to the table and see it from farther away, but it works just fine on a phone as well, so you don't need a tablet. Also works on Android phones and Android tablets as well. And they have said that in the future they're working on a Windows version also. So as long as you have Bluetooth support on your device so it can pair with the stylus, you're good to go. So speaking of the stylus, so you download the app, you pair your stylus to it, and these are both one-time events. And you're ready to go. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is pick a mission. So in the app right now, they're still adding a lot of stuff to it. It's full-featured and works, but there's only a few scenarios, like 5 scenarios to choose from right now. 2 or 3 of them are tutorials, which take you through very, very simple scenarios, like 1 tile on the board and like 2 golems, through more advanced scenarios, which have 4 or 5 tiles on the board, but only 3 golems each. That's what's in the starter box, to then more interesting scenarios where you're actually trying to get to a certain spot on the table, control certain zones, and you can build your own armies when you play those. So you pick your scenario, basically, and that's going to tell you, and the app's going to say, okay, now lay the tiles out in the following formation, and you lay them out. And while you're laying the tiles, it's kind of cool. You can tap the tiles with the stylus, and on the screen, you can see it'll light up where you're tapping on the screen, so you can verify that what you've laid down is matching where the computer thinks it is. It's really straightforward, though. When we didn't run any trouble, the only trouble Craig and I had was when I mistakenly left my number 2 tile in the car. Mm-hmm. And this is a problem then, because you can't cheat and use the wrong tile, because as you tap to move around, the stylus knows which square you're going to work. So maybe we should spend a moment.
Did you talk at all about how the stylus works?
We should talk about the technology a little bit here. So this uses a technology called microdots. And what basically this means is that there's little tiny dots, and you can't really see, if you stare really, really hard, you see them, but Craig, you don't really notice them, right, when you're just looking at it casually.
I couldn't see them even when I looked.
Very small dots that cover pretty much any printed surface. So as Craig said, around the bases of each model standing on a cool base, and the base has a ridge on the edge, and that ridge has a sticker on it, and the sticker says the name of the model, and it's divided into regions that have different moves and like an icon for walking and things. And anyway, each of those regions on that sticker have different microdots. If you tap it, the app knows what you just tapped. All the tiles also have microdots in each region on the tile, and the tiles are divided up into little squares. So your golems are going to move from one square to the other across the board. You're going to tap base of your golem where you want to go, and boom, it knows where you're moving it. Also, all those cards Craig was describing are divided up into different moves you can do. So imagine if you had like a War Machine card or a Malifaux card, you could tap the area of the card where it says the ability for your character, and the computer knew which ability you just selected, and it does. And then it says, oh, you're choosing a ranged ability. Tap a golem that's a target. And I tap one of Craig's golem's bases, and it says, oh, you're about to shoot him, and it evaluates if you got range, and boom, it just goes. So that's pretty much how the stylus works. Is that making sense, Teras, so far?
Yeah, for sure. That's super cool. So the computer knows where you're going to be. Now, do you when you move to a place, does it tell you where to move, or do you know?
You tell it where to move. So what happens is, for example, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's say I want to do the move action, right? So I have a couple different ways I can tell the computer I'd like to move my golem. The one way is on the base of my golem. One of the sections is divided up to a little tiny section that's got a little picture of a foot, and if I tap that, I've chosen the move action. Now, if I go to my card, there's a bigger section that shows more information about moving. It shows me the number of action points it's going to take me to move. It shows the distance my golem can normally move. And when I tap that action or the icon on my thing, the computer screen then zooms in on my golem, but then zooms out enough to show the board and highlights which tiles on the board he can make it to. And the computer is figuring out terrain effects. This isn't a simple game where if your guy moves 3, he can move 3 squares. Mm-hmm. He can move 3, but if you're walking through water, that takes him 2 movement points per square. If you're climbing up a hill, it takes you 3 movement points per square. Unless your guy's got nimble, in which case nimble can ignore terrain, or if he's a flyer, he ignores terrain. It knows all that for you. And so at first, it's going to be like playing a video game where you're learning it without reading the rule book, and you're like, how come when I tap this golem, I can go as far as I want, but when I tap this golem, he can't seem to move across that one? Oh, I'm choosing the bird golem. He flies. I get it. He ignores the mountain in the way, kind of thing. So you learn that, but it's all in there and actually explains it all in the rules online if you want to read through all that too and learn it first. So you can approach it like a miniature war gamer and digest all the rules first, so when you sit down, you kind of know it all. Or you can approach it like a video gamer and kind of say, I'm going to learn as I go. Either way kind of works, and it just depends on how you want to consume it.
I wonder if you'll have a lot of cross gamers that way. That's kind of cool.
You
you might have one person from one side and one person from the other.
You might, which would be interesting, and I think it's going to appeal that. I think they did very well at PAX. They went to PAX Prime also. I think they did very well there also, and I'm really interested to see if they have a strong presence at PAX East this spring, because I think the PAX crowd might do well for this game. So back to setup. So all we did was we downloaded the app. That's a one-time thing. We paired our Bluetooth thing, which anybody who's paired a Bluetooth speaker or paired their phone to their car, they know it's really easy. You pick your mission. It tells you how to lay the tiles out, which takes you about 2 minutes. And then you deploy your forces. Now, the early tutorials, the ones out of the boxes, is, okay, here's what side A is going to use, here's what side B is going to use. You lay them out. It shows you where to put them on the map. If you're playing a more advanced version, where you could build your own army, which Craig and I did play also, you actually tap each of your golem's bases, and it says, where do you want to put it? And it actually says to you, hey, Craig, you got the lower point value army. You're 498 points and Russ is 499 points. So since your point value is lower, you get to choose whether you're going to deploy first or second. If you deploy first, I get to see your deployment, but you get to move first. Very similar to War Machine there. It also displays the mission objective. You're going to lay down your control cards, those cards for all your golems, and you're ready to start. And the game's going to say, okay, it's player one's turn, and it has the name of the army and the name of player. Play Craig, it's your turn. Grab a stylus and go. So that's set up. Does that make sense so far?
Yep.
Yep, for sure.
I thought it was cool because when you set up, you also set up each player with a specific stylus. So you can use one, like out of the box, but you can also buy an extra one, and each player can use their own.
Exactly right. And they sold the separate styluses available online, and they had them at GenCon too. And so it's kind of like sharing a tape measure. You totally can do it, but you do feel like, I wish I had my own stylus. And I think the stylus is the secret to this one. So, when I played XLS, you'd have to kind of move your models, then go reach over to the screen and tap stuff over there, and then go back to your models, and then go back to your screen. And here, because you could actually get away with never touching the screen. you can just tap with the stylus, what's really cool about that is it basically lets you plug your iPad into a larger television or your phone, project it on a much bigger screen, like you're playing in the living room and you got your 40-inch television showing everything on the wall there, and you can just look up at it. You never have to touch it because you can just say, tap my guy, tap where he's going. And then if Craig has his stylus, he's like, oh yeah, I tap my guy, tap where he's going. And okay, well I'm going to shoot you. I tap my guy with his apocalyptic blast, and I tap your guy, and blah, man, I got you. Okay, so it's very, very actually quick once you get the hang of it. One other thing about the stylus, there are two buttons on the stylus. There's a big button and a little button. The big button is what they call the confirm button. So after you do everything, you confirm. And there's a littler button that basically backs you up one step. So if you haven't finalized the move, you can back out one. Although that it does there's points where you can't return those. So kind of get used to that if you play a couple times. So we've already talked about the microdots and how the stylus works. So let's talk about the basics of the game and give you some of the rules to this as well. So, because one of the things I was worried about when I first played it is there any meat to this game, or is it really just tap and move? Or is there tactics here, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the depth here. So the way the turn works is when it's your turn, you've got a certain number of action points to spend. And like some more recent miniature games, you don't activate every model on your side of the board. Each model doesn't get a single action. It's not like that. It's just you've got a certain number of action points. Each model has different kinds of action they can do. And on your cards, it shows you it's going to cost you, for this particular golem, it might cost you 1 action point to move 3 squares. A bigger, slower golem might cost 2 or 5 action points to move a couple squares. It has a distance on that. There are other actions as well, like different kinds of attack actions. So basically, you're going to choose. Now, the number of actions you get per turn is based on the game size. The smallest point game you can play right now is a 500-point game, which gives each player 6 action points per turn. As you go to larger point games, 1,000 points and higher, you'll get more action points as well. So bigger scale games, you can do more before you have to give up your side of your turn of the game. So when I choose an action, what I'm going to do is, as we kind of described it already, I'm going to tap the action with either on the card or on the base of the model. The advantage of the card is I've got a lot of detail on the action. On the front of the card, I've got some
good old-fashioned game card.
Right, I got some stats. And on the back of the card, I have more detailed rules about each action, but I also have a nice little bit of fluff. I did like this a lot. Like it says, like on Diamond Blast, is all the gems on the front of the on the front of the golem glow and then shoots a laser out, so you kind of get a feeling for what you're actually doing, or spikes covered in poison fire from the spine, so it gives you a little flavor text, which is nice. There's also one other place you can look. If you were to tap part of your base for your move, it then shows you on the screen as well, your golem gets front and center, and it shows the action you've chosen, and it shows all the stats for that action there as well. So if you don't have the cards and you just tap the base, it comes right up on the screen. So you have both ways to go. You can play it more card-based. You can play it just with the models. You can actually tap the iPad screen as well to pick all these things also. So you have a bunch of different choices, but I really like using the stylus. I like the base. Craig preferred the cards. Didn't matter. Both ways worked.
Exactly.
So moving is pretty straightforward. You're going to tap the move action, either on your base or your thing, and then the screen's going to show where your guy could walk by highlighting which squares are available. Very, very similar to like a turn-based strategy game on a computer. And you're going to tap then the physical board. You're not going to tap the screen. You're going to tap the physical board with the stylus, which square you want your guy to move to. Now, there are terrain effects. So for example, each plane square, like a flat surface you walk through, is 1 movement point per thing. So if my guy says it costs him 2 action points to move 3 spaces, he can move through 3 basically flat open terrain. If it's elevated terrain he's moving to, it's going to cost him 2 movement points per section. If it's blocking terrain, it'll slow it down. If it's got ground cover, so all these different things, they're all listed in the rule book, but you can but the game does it for you. You can sort of see it on the screen. They're figuring it out. There are some other movement point things to watch out for. Breaking away, in other words, if I'm in the same square as Craig, so we're kind of engaged in melee combat, if I want to walk away from him, I can without provoking any sort of danger, but it costs me an extra movement point to get out of there. There are also stacking limits in the squares. And what's nice about this is the base is sort of enforced this. You don't have to really remember it. Basically, if you can't fit your guy in there, you can't fit him in there. So the biggest dudes, the giant colossals, take up an entire square. The smaller guys, you could fit 4 in a square. And there's sort of a medium-sized guy who's about twice as big as a small guy. You can fit him and 2 small guys in a square. Again, it's not hard to remember this because the screen shows you, but also you can physically not do it with the base sizes. So if you can't physically do it, you can't do it in the game rules. Does that make sense, Craig, when you're playing it?
Yeah, it absolutely did.
And did that making sense, Teras, for how movement works?
Yeah, exactly. I think you can even kind of visualize it as it goes forward. So that's
right.
that's
and it's very
pretty
simple.
cool.
So once you tap where you're going to go, the computer says confirm it. You click the button, and then you're physically going to move your figure. So you pick your guy, put him where he ended up, and you'll see on the screen that it's showing where he should be now, so you know you're in sync. So it's very difficult, I think. I don't know, Craig, if you felt this. I felt very difficult to get out of sync between the computer and the. I never felt like I was trying to catch up with the computer or the computer trying to catch up with me.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be one of my questions for you. Is that. Yeah. Do you, at any point when you're doing this, do you feel like one actually kind of overpowers the other one, like makes the other one irrelevant? Like, does the video aspect make the miniatures relevant, or the miniatures, do they make the video irrelevant, or does it go back and forth between relevancy?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. So there's one thing that slowed it down a little bit for me, which was that right now, the current implementation, there's a slight lag between when I tap my miniature and sometimes when the iPad realizes it. Not always. So I don't think it's a technology fail of the pen. Like certain times, if I tap terrain, it seems to know it instantly. If I tap a move, though, sometimes it took a while for the iPad to kind of load the model up. And I think that's just probably coding efficiencies they'll probably fix as they make it better. So that kind of took me out of the game for a second because I noticed like Craig would tap, we'd have to kind of wait a second. He'd count to like maybe 1,000, 2,000, click, then it'll come up. I'd like it to be instant. And I think that's just coding efficiencies they'll get better with. But Craig and I did discuss pretty significantly the idea of could you just play this on the iPad? Do you even need the miniatures or the stylus or anything else?
I think that's a key question.
Can't you just play that? And as we go through this, think about that. And I think we should discuss that at the end because that's a big sort of question mark on this item. Is everything extraneous and you really just play this on the iPad? So we'll come back to that question in the answer. So the other actions you can do are basically all on the card, and they're generally attacks, but they've got enough trappings in these attacks, so if you see a lightning bolt next to it, it means it's a ranged attack. If you see a fist next to it, it means it's melee attack, which normally means you must be in the same square as your opponent to melee attack them. The only exception to that is the giant, colossal dudes who you can't fit in their square, so they actually basically charge and run up next to you and hit you. So these stats tell you everything you know about the thing. If it's a range attack, it tells you the number of squares for range. It tells you the AP cost, the accuracy, and that's a percentage number. So it might say 45, and that means that it's the percent chance I've got to hit straight up. Now, target models have a dodge statistic, and basically to know the percent chance to hit somebody. So if I've got a guy who's 60% accuracy, and Craig's got a guy with 15 dodge, it means you subtract his dodge from my accuracy. So my accuracy goes from 60 to 45, and basically I'm going to roll percentile dice, and I'm hoping to get equal to or under the accuracy number to hit. Now, there's also cover bonuses, so those will factor in as well. So you're going to take my accuracy, subtract the target's dodge value, subtract the cover bonus, and that's my percent chance to hit. Also on the stats for everything, so there's really only three numbers. There's the action points, there's my accuracy, and then there's my damage value, which is how many points of damage I'm going to do. Now, every golem's got a number of hit points. When you reduce those to 0, he's dead. And most golems have a damage value between 30 and 50, but then the big dudes are up to like 200, the huge dudes. And the damage you're going to do, so some weapons are like 20 points, some weapons are 30 points, but then all golems have some kind of armor. So if I shoot you, there's no die roll for actually the amount of damage I do. If I hit you, I'm going to do my damage value, which is maybe 20 points, but then I'm going to subtract your armor for the net hit points you lose. Mm-hmm. Make sense? Yep. And that's pretty much the attack roll. Now, there's a couple bonuses here for the attack stats. If you roll doubles, so if I roll a 44 or a 33 or a 77, those are doubles. If that double roll, that's my detailed explanation.
Yeah, it's very nice.
On a percentile dice, see how that works?
Yeah.
So if I get doubles that would hit you normally, so if I need a 45 to hit you and I roll a 44, that'd be a hit anyway, but if I roll doubles, it becomes a critical, meaning that I do 1.5 times my normal damage. If I roll doubles and it's a miss, so if I needed a 45 to hit you and I rolled a 55, it becomes a lucky hit. I just do normal damage to you. So your percent chance to hit's a little better than your actual percentage. And one other thing to notice is that if I roll 0-0, that is actually a perfect hit. It's a super critical. And what that basically means is I do a critical damage to you and I don't have to cool down. So let's talk about cooldown.
Mm-hmm. And before we go on, though, the computer recognizes it if you do a double-double or something like that.
That's all handled automatically. But what's cool is when you tap a target. So if I tap my guy, I'm going to use I had an attack called Arcane Blast or Apocalyptic Blast, I think it was. So I'm going to tap my guy, and Apocalyptic Blast has some special rules, like it damages everybody in the square, not just a single model, and everybody's got a % chance to be randomly displaced. So it moves them around. So it's like there's attack types. My big guy had attack type of throw, and basically all that meant was it had a keyword that when I attacked you and it was only range 1 with it, I would then displace you to a square within 2 of my choosing. So basically I could pick you up and throw you across a little bit of ways away. So, but basically, if I tap my attack and I tap my target, it'll show me the % chance to hit with all the modifiers. So if I'm in a square with an enemy, I can shoot my weapons, but at minus 20%. And if you're in a square with cover, you've got some modifier against me as well. So it'll show me that normally maybe I need a 65 to hit, but now I need a 33 to hit you, which is a pretty bad chance. I can then hit the back button on the thing and undo that selection and tap someone else to see my % chance to hit, or I can confirm and go for the attack anyway, right? So I can do that. And then once I do that, it shows the actual dice roll. Since you rolled a 35. If it was a critical or a 33, it'd be like, ooh, you got a critical. It shows the damage value. It shows their armor subtracted from it. It shows the net damage, and it shows the actual little meter on their health bar above their golem go down. So it's all very visual. Craig, did it make sense? Was it easy to follow, sort of start to learn the rules as it did that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do a lot of video games, so I don't have a lot of experience in sort of experiential learning like that, where you just like go as you go, and I prefer to understand a little bit better. But as we played, I started to see things play out and understood maybe from a gaming perspective, like, oh yeah, so that would make sense. And why can't I get through? Oh yeah, because there's a mountain on either side, and Russ is stuck in the middle there, and I can't get past him. And so it really started to. The rules were there, and I could kind of see them sort of vaguely, like a mist. You could look through them to the fun and the battle that was playing out on the board almost easier than if I had learned the rules from a book. But yeah, it really started. You saw those doubles come up. You figured out what was going on. You saw your ranges, and you could start to figure out why they were what they were, and it really everything started to click, and you could really put it together. Probably I was playing by the time we finished, I was probably playing at a much higher level this game anyway than I would say if I had started from scratch knowing nothing about a full-blown normal miniatures game.
So you weren't feeling cheated that you were being taught.
Exactly. Yeah, I did feel cheated at the beginning, but as I progressed, I started to think that was completely the wrong impression, because by the end of the evening, I was thinking tactically. I was figuring out, but I can do this, but then it's going to have a cost. And there's so much that the app does for you that allows for a lot of depth that a regular board or regular miniatures game couldn't get to, because it would be forever tracking all this different stuff. But not only was this game doing it, but I was sort of figuring it out by the second session of 2. We played 2 sessions. Each game lasted less than an hour. By the second session, I was figuring out, okay, so I could do that. But I mean, I still didn't quite have the math down. I didn't know how exactly everything was going to affect what I was doing, but I knew if I did X, then I was going to be able to do Y or Z next turn, and they were going to cost different things. And so I started to figure out what the game was allowing me to do that I truly believe a miniatures game would not be able to do, and certainly not in the second time I ever played it.
Right. And what's cool too, and Teras, you mentioned about line of sight and stuff, so and Craig brought this up too, so what's neat is when I click the target model, like a couple times Craig clicked my guy, and it says on the screen, no LOS, but then it shows the line, because the rules in this game is you draw a line from the center of your square to the center of your target square, and if it passes through any terrains that any other squares that block LOS is blocked. It shows the line drawn on the screen between you 2 squares, and then any square that blocks in the middle is highlighted red. So you can actually see which square is blocking it. So you're, that's the middle square. Oh, I see, the art on that square is actually a little mountain. I get it. Now, of course, in this game, because all the tiles are based on artwork, if you're a hardcore miniature gamer, you'd probably, Craig and I talked about this too, you'd probably want to build some cool terrain and put it on top of the squares to kind of remind you where the 3D parts are. But it was still worked very well, and you sort of instantly figured out what was going on and got the math figured out. A couple of words about actions before we go to cooldown. So in addition to being able to choose one of the actions on your cards, which usually attack or move, there's also Knights actions and Relics actions. So These actions can also be on cards, but you'll most often find them on the actual iPad screen. So when you're building your army and you select your golem, you can also select the knights who pilot it. Now, generic knights that don't add any points to your golem don't have any special abilities. But you could pick better knights that add points to your golem that give you cool other actions you could choose to do. And these are just different actions that usually cost action points, although I had one knight who actually did damage to my golem, so I lost hit points, but it increased my cooldown and things like that. So there's other actions you can do as well. There's actually relics, which are basically equipment you give to your golem to carry, like a big cross or a sword or something, and that actually increases their stats because of another action they can do, and things like that. So there's more things you can spend action points on, but you basically have this generic pool of action points you can spend on a wide variety of things. Now, there are other miniature war games that let you activate the same model or the same action more than once. What's interesting about this game is you can do that, but every time you do an action, you generate what's called cooldown points on that action, not just that model. So, for example, if one of Craig's guys shoots his spine attack, whatever it's called, that particular action on that particular golem called spine attack generates a cooldown point. Once the cooldown point's on your guy, that action now costs more action points to do the same action again until it cools down. So you can keep doing the same action. I could fire my Apocalyptic Blast, which is a really cool, damages multiple guys, long-range attack. But the first time I do it, it's going to cost me 3 action points. Once I get that cooldown pip, the next time I try to shoot it, it's double. It now costs 6 action points, which is my entire turn, by the way. If I get another cooldown token on it, which I would if I fired it again, it would now cost 8 action points to do that. Now I can't afford it anymore in this low point value game, and I've got to let it cool down. And I might not even think tactically it's worth shooting it again. Or if I want to run my big guy really far across the table, again, doing multiple movements sequentially builds up the cooldown points and takes it longer. So I've got to stay away from that particular action on that particular guy. Now, in a regular miniature war game, that would be a lot of record keeping to keep track of every single action, how many times you've used it on every single guy, and you really wouldn't have it in there. But, of course, then because the computer's doing it, it's no big deal. When you tap your action, it just shows you right on the screen how many action points it's going to take. And you're like, oh, crap, that's too many points for right now. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. What did you think of the cooldown system, Craig?
It's one of the many things that I think really where this game, the comparison is going to be made between this and Ixalis a lot. And I think Ixalis felt to me like you said at the beginning of the segment, it felt like a miniatures game sort of, but where the computer did all the stuff for you. And yes, it had a little bit of the main thing that Ixalis did was it tracked your experience and your units could advance. So it was like a Warhammer fantasy where the computer did some stuff for you. This game, Golem Arcana, is really leveraging this system and the computer element. And one of the many cool things that it works, that it's added into it is this cooldown phase where you can do sort of vis-a-vis infinity. The same guy can do the same thing over and over again. But every time he does it, it costs him more action points as he starts to get full of energy or heat up or whatever the fluff is. And it gets to the point where you price yourself out, and all of a sudden, for instance, Russ had an ability that was awesome, really super powerful. He used it once, and the next time he tried to use it, it was going to cost him 8 action points in a game where you only get 6 a turn. So, and you can't save them up. So you know that, wow, when that's got to cool down before I can use it again. And the thing is, if this is a normal miniatures game, cooldown would be automatic, and it would be next turn, you remove the token, and you can use the thing again as normal. This game really takes advantage of the fact that the computer can do all these calculations for you, so it doesn't just reset at the beginning of next turn, or you skip a turn. It literally, depending on how much you pushed it, it takes a while for that to back off to the point where you can start using it again, and the cost starts to come down. So the cooldown is a really cool element that almost to me seemed like, did they mean to do this with MechWarrior first and then went with Golem Arcana instead? Because I mean that's totally what's happening here. Is you're pushing your weapons and then they start to overheat, so you have to slow down, and the game is tracking it all for you so that you don't even know. I don't know how long it takes for my lava lance to cool down, but I know when it's cool.
Right. And Matt, it is, well, don't forget, guys founded FASA. I mean, he did Battletech.
Yeah.
But it does feel like fantasy Battletech in a way. And what's cool about it, too, is then they've got other mechanics. Like I mentioned, one of the knights I had in my big main dude was my cooldown knight. So he could actually remove a cooldown token, but he would damage his golem 15 health points. And I haven't found a way to heal yet. So that was a permanent damage, and it cost me an action point to do it, but boom, I would get my cooldown. So there's ways, there's combos and things you can do to, like, if you're going to rely on a big, heavy centerpiece model, which I was, because I have this giant dude that was early release at Gen Con. He's the biggest one they make right now. But he's just a chunk of points. I was down a model. So what happens is as you guys die, it becomes a problem too, because now you can't spread out the actions and you can't cool down quickly. So when you've only got one model left, yeah, you're using all action points on him, but he's quickly overheating. He doesn't know what to do. He can't respond because everything's taking him. He's getting overloaded. But if you have this, you can have a combo that fixes that, but then you're going to pay that price somehow as well.
Right. And the cool thing that it's forcing you to do as a player is you have to spread your action points over your whole force.
Right.
You can't just, again, vis-a-vis Infinity, pump all of your action points into that one powerful model of yours, because if you do that, you're not going to be able to do anything with him next turn. So you need multiple models so that you can do other things while your big powerful guy is cooling down, which I thought was a really cool. There's a lot of really cool things that are woven into this game at a level that's just below, the surface, where it feels like I'm using these super big giant magical monster things that need to calm down and relax, and instead of like constantly, oh, did I remember that token? Oh, I removed 2 tokens a turn because of this. It's doing that all for you, so you're looking at the board and figuring out your strategy and your tactics instead of worrying about all those mechanics.
Right. And so there's one other cool mechanic to the game, because we've pretty much gotten through most of it here. But the one other thing that's really neat is there's this concept of mana and the Ancient Ones. So when you're building your list, in addition to being when you pick a golem, you select the 3 things: the golem itself, the knight or knights who are driving it. Some of the bigger golems have more than one knight driving it, and that adds points to the golem and adds it abilities. You also can select relics, which are just basically give extra action types to the golem. But then you also can put Ancient Ones who are like backing up your entire army. It's kind of the gods who you pray to. And the Ancient Ones, the different Ancient Ones are different depending on which faction you choose. Again, kind of like the faction informs which knights. Now, don't make the same mistake I did and build a list without an Ancient One, because there's a core mechanic that takes it that you really want to leverage, and it's mana.
Yeah.
This is pretty slick. So in the game, whenever you end a turn with extra action points, so let's say, you got 6 action points, you spend 5, you got 1 left, and it happens that none of your golems have a 1 action point action, or you've overheated, your cooldown's too high and you can't spend anything. That extra unspent action point doesn't carry over to the next turn. You lose it, but it converts to mana and fills your mana pool up by how many points you have left. So you can basically do less actions in a turn and generate more mana. Now, mana can be spent on your Ancient Ones to do stuff, and depending on which Ancient One or ones you added to your list is going to give you different mana abilities. And these things range from, increasing your accuracy of the neck of all the golems, to increasing their speed, to increasing cooldown, all kinds of different options. So you can really adjust. Not only do you have a choice of a bunch of different golems to choose for your list, and then which knights you're going to put them in, but you can also augment your force with different Ancient Ones to adjust for your playstyle. If you like to really go long and go hard with one particular golem, you'd have to adjust your whole list to be able to increase cooldown. Or if you really want really accurate shots, so that kind of thing's there too. So I really like this option as well. So make sure you get those Ancient Ones and try out that mana, because it's really cool. And what's neat too is the tutorials in the app walk you through this. Like the first tutorial just shows you basically movement into basics. There's another tutorial all about the Ancient Ones. So it kind of takes you through all this stuff as well.
Yeah. And you don't want to miss out on, I had almost 40 mana at one point,
yes,
and nothing to do with it.
Right.
I mean, you get it every time you get destroyed. I was accidentally collecting from mana wells because I was hiding from Russ's big giant guy. Yep. So, I mean, it was literally I was just soaking in mana and had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, there's some of the scenarios have mana wells on the table, which are represented by tokens, but they're also on the video screen. And as you stand there, you absorb the mana you remove from the table, so you get that. When your golem dies, he releases some of his mana back into your pool, so things like that. So there's so the mana is kind of a little game balancing thing, where if you're the one losing golems more, you're going to get more mana, and if you're conserving your action points, you get more mana too. So it's definitely take some good ancient ones there.
Yeah, because you can't leverage it without those ancient ones.
So that's the basics of gameplay. Does that all make sense, Teras?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. So I do have a few questions, but I still want to hear more.
Well, I want to jump into some sample scenarios and list building, but that's the crux of it. What do you got for questions on the basic game?
No, go on. Okay. Go on, because I think it's more aesthetics stuff that we were going to talk about after. So let's talk about that later.
We already talked about list building quite a bit. Right now, the app supports only 500-point lists, but the way it's set up, you can go 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000. And I think they haven't bothered putting scenarios in for that size because there's not that much models out yet. 500 points is a pretty good chunk of options. It's going to be 4 golems a side, maybe 3 if you got one of the big guys. It's a pretty good flexibility. And it felt like a pretty meaty game, Craig, didn't it, with that many models?
It did. And it felt like there were a lot of options. And it was cool because we had a couple different objectives in the different scenarios we were looking at to play. And like I said, with that whole pushing element and pushing mechanic and the cooldown mechanic, I wasn't trying to kill you. I was trying to win through these objectives that the missions have. And really, because it's on an app, the missions are almost endless, the stuff that they can come up with and all the cool stuff that they've already talked about at Gen Con. They were talking about hidden objective missions or missions with, capture and hold, or there's a knight somewhere on the board. You have to find him. And then when you find him, you can use him. And there's all kinds of cool stuff that, because you've got the world is half this board game and half in the app, it really sort of opens up a whole new concept of scenarios, which I thought was very cool.
The other outside the box thing I thought was cool was that, they comes with these tiles, and they're square tiles that have, about 4x4 little tiny squares in them. And when
3x3.
3x3. When you lay them out, you sort of think that would be, 4 in a big square, or maybe 6 in a big, rectangle. But that's not what they do. I mean, some of the missions are like that, but some of the missions are very interesting patterns. Like the one scenario Craig and I played was called Thread the Needle. And in this one, it was 3 tiles with 1 tile in the middle and 3 tiles on the other side. So there was sort of this negative space where you couldn't walk in between the 2 end zones, which made like a narrow channel. And on that particular tile, there were 2 mountain peaks representing the tile, so it became very, very narrow. It
was crazy.
And the goal was for each of us to get to the opposite side of the board and hold a square with no enemies in it for 1 turn, and we'd win. And so it ended up being this channeled block. It was almost like 300, where you're trying to block this little narrow thing against your opponent. So
except that instead of a measly 300 Spartans, he had a big, giant, colossal office building-sized monster.
It was awesome, because the only way I could get to his side fast was I sent my flyer, and I was trying to juke past him, but Craig got a critical on my flyer and killed it. And then so my big guy's holding the line, and it was great. I actually picked up one of his guys and threw him back. He tried to run by me. But then finally Craig rushed me with too many guys at once, and my big guy just couldn't respond. Again, cooldown. I couldn't respond to all of them fast enough.
Yeah, once I had Russ down to only 1 model, even though it was a super powerful model, he couldn't keep doing the same thing over and over again, even 1 turn to the next, because he needed cooldown time. So it allowed me just like my little wounded sand dog rolled into the my objective space and won the game.
Yeah, it's really, the cooldown thing really keeps you from spamming, as we say in the video games, spamming that super cheesy move, right? You just can't do it. You gotta have combos and other things to help work that through. And I'm sure there are some neat combos that I could eventually figure out. Like some of the figures, like some of the ones that are made from the bones have like a full, some kind of corrosive cloud around them. So I charged one of Craig's guys in our earlier game, and all of a sudden I'm taking 5 points of damage a turn because I'm standing next to him. Like, oh, what am I doing? So there's all kinds of cool area effects and keyword effects on the cards, and it's got, I turned to Craig and Dan and said, this has all the depth of any miniature war game we've played. It's all there someplace,
Yeah.
So it's not dumbed down at all for the video. Go ahead.
And the tiles itself, like you say it comes with 4 now, right? Is that
6.
6. And you can use those all interchangeably. So really your combinations of a battlefield are quite large.
Right now, the app doesn't let you build your own battlefield. So right now there's only the pre-made scenarios, but they've said that's one of the things they're going to do. Now, I was also able to buy another pack of tiles at Gen Con that are different. So I actually have 12 different tiles now, all different kinds of terrain. Now, the app doesn't take advantage of all of them yet, but they're working on that too, and they'll be downloading them. So let's talk a little about what's coming in the near future, because they got big plans for this. This is only the beginning, and if the sales at Gen Con and PAX are to be the judge, I mean, they sold out at Gen Con, and they kept bringing more in, and they kept selling out. So hopefully they do well. Hopefully they're going to expand it. I'm looking forward to the new things. And so they had some preview figures there of yet more stuff, which look great. So still more sculpts, more of the big giant colossals. But what they got coming soon is they've got because all of it's digital and online. They've got they're doing what's called living fiction. So this fall, every game you play on your device, the results from that go and inform the fiction. So they're going to have more of that coming in. So it kind of reminds me of some of the stuff GW did a few years ago with, Armageddon, that kind of thing is going to happen, which sounds really cool. They're going to have a competitive play program coming this winter, and they got another living fiction event coming this spring. They got the new models coming out. They've already got a new set. Right now at Gen Con, they had the core base set and 2 3-figure expansion sets. One of the guys that are made out of wood, one of the guys that are made out of bone. They got another one coming out. I think it's just releasing this week. So there'll be yet one more set, 3 more guys. And again, because of the way the factions work, all of these are sort of interchangeable depending on which factions you play. Then, though, this other idea, they're calling it big data, which is, buzzword to IT, but big data for game balance. So none of the point costs for any of the models are printed on the card. The point costs are only represented in the app. So what they're going to do is every time you play a game, that data of who won, who lost, how the different moves were, how much damage every move did, is all collected and put back on their servers. And then they're going to analyze that data and look for game balance issues and correct them as they go, just like you would for any video game, with StarCraft or whatever releases patches all the time. Oh, we're nerfing this particular combo. So they can do that, and they can just adjust the points on the fly because the points are just all digital. So they can easily tweak this game and keep it balanced, and that's something they're going to work on too.
Which is great fun, especially when you think of some Matrix gamer who's going to figure out the cool combo that's going to kill everybody, and then one day he logs on to play a game and he gets nerfed and he's screaming while you're playing.
So I think that's what most companies should do now. We all have the ability to do that.
That's the thing. So
I think we need a living rules is what we need.
Yes, the living rules is definitely key. Now, what's also cool about this is they've talked about what their next batch of sort of development stuff on their app is. So coming soon, they want to fix the user interface, fix a bunch of bugs. Hopefully they'll get that tiny bit of lag out of there that I noticed. That was the only really hiccup, Craig, that I really noticed was the little bit of lag. We had to wait a couple seconds for the register.
Absolutely.
They're going to get a map scenario creator and a map designer. So right now that doesn't exist. That'll be great when they get that out, so I can use all the other cool tiles. Now, if you forget tile 2, you can always make it work with the other tiles. More knights. So what's also cool is when you're building your list, of course, you need the physical plastic models to play, but the knights you put inside of them and the ancient ones you use, you don't need any physical representation for those. Those are all digital inside the game. So they're going to be able to add more knights and add more ancient ones just in the app for either free or, bonuses for going to certain events or in-app purchases. So they can just crank more of those out. So that'll expand and adjust the list as well. They're going to add the PC and Mac support. That's what's really the obvious thing that's missing right now. So right now, again, most people have a smartphone. It's either Android or iOS, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. But I'd like to be able to use my Surface with it, so I'm looking forward to getting that. Other cool things, more than 2-player games. So that would be great. So you can play 3-player, 4-player. Another thing they talked about was solo games. So adding AI to the app so that you can actually play with model versus model, but the app actually moves one side.
Yeah.
Another thing I've talked about is remote play. This is really interesting. So if Craig's at home and I'm at my house, we could play against each other. He's got his tablet, I've got mine, and we can still play remotely, but have our miniatures out in front of us, which is just a really cool idea too. So things you could only really do with the game part itself, they're really looking at. So I'm really excited about some of the options here and really going to be able to do a lot of interesting things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds awesome. I mean, just for the solo play in itself, that's something that all war gamers kind of dream of, right? I mean, to be able to maybe have a game when you're traveling or when you're not with your group of normal gamers. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, so Teras, before we get to final thoughts, what kind of question did you have, or do you want to use them in final thoughts?
Okay, well, we talked about does one become irrelevant at any one point?
Let's talk about that.
Are we going to do that with final thoughts, or
no? We can do it. Well, we can do it in final thoughts. So
then I would have some suggestions on what other stuff I'd like to see.
Yeah, go.
I would love to see if there was more of a 3-dimensional images on the app itself. Like if you could actually see the terrain a little bit better instead of them marking it off in red, maybe have it as if there's a cliff on the 3-dimensional one, so you can kind of envision it on the board game itself. That would be kind of cool.
I like to have terrain sets I could buy so I can put them on my boards. That
right.
look
Yeah,
good.
exactly. That too. And then have them represented as line of sight blocking images on the actual app. I think that would
that's
would
missing.
Like
Crossmasters has the 3D trees. I feel like I'm missing that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it would bring that to a little bit more to life.
Yep.
All wargamers everywhere want to see their miniatures move. Yep. So if they could do like a New Hope Star Wars chess pieces where they move and actually fight, now that would be pretty cool. Also, I don't know if that would take away from the miniature game or not. And I think that's the balance that they really have to watch is how much graphics they actually do on the app versus what's happening on the table. So because you don't want one to kind of overpower one, but those type of things, I think the terrain thing for sure. If they can make the terrain a little bit more 3-dimensional on the app itself, you get a good feel of what the battlefield looks like. Yeah. And that's what I try to create on my table. And if they could do it on the app, that would be all the power to them.
I think those are great, and that's a good point. Right now, there are no the miniatures don't animate at all. Yeah. Even when you move them, they just disappear from where they were and move to where they're going to. They do it in a way where it doesn't look cheap. It looks, to your point, Teras, it looks intentional. Like at all times, what is on the physical board in the real world looks the same as on the screen. So it doesn't. They do feel like they complement each other. It doesn't feel to me like the video game is somehow cooler to watch than the actual table.
Right, yeah, you'd have to really balance that. Although seeing your miniature walk from one place to another would be cool on the table. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what I'd rather want. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of what a lot of companies give them what they want is not always the best thing, right?
Yep. So before we get to the final thoughts, we should describe the patent pending D6G rating system. So Craig, in the style of a knight piloting a golem while wearing a white wife-beater T-shirt. Please describe the patent-pending D6G rating system.
Okay. Let's see. Give me a moment as I start fiddling with the jewels of command. I've just got a couple things here I need to straighten out. Okay. Hello, little mortal. I am one of the Blood Knights commanding the Jagara Colossus. Let me tell you how I rate threats to my massive Colossus in battle. If something is really threatening and intimidating and really cool looking, I give it a low number, sort of like if I was to roll the bones, or actually press a button, or press a wand to a button, and it instantly gave me a number, and that number would be somewhere between a 2, which would be great, and a 6 would be really bad, because that's very high. So something that's really interesting on the battlefield would be a low number, and something that's really not very interesting to me, and that I can ignore, that's going to have a high number. So it's going to be a rating between 2 and 6. 2 is good, 6 is very, very bad. And because I spent my entire youth learning how to pilot a massive Jagara Colossus and not doing math, I will go with a reroll or a re-wand, and that is a half, not more than a half, which you mathematician types would tell me.
Very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. So, Craig, do you want to start with your final thoughts?
Sure. I'll give my final thoughts. I was prepared to not like this game. I did not like Exilis. I'll say Exilis seemed to me the board game, either the board game or the app was superfluous to the experience in the demos that I played. So and it was much larger tiles, and you were moving entire units. It was literally Warhammer Fantasy. It wasn't, Warhammer Fantasy, but it was a miniatures fantasy game where the rules were being handled by a computer in a very clinical way that kind of like I just felt, okay, now I have to shove all these models across here, and the because the tiles were so big, they were like a foot on a side. There was really no granularity at all. It was all very abstract, and in a demo scenario, you're not seeing like, oh, but if these guys keep winning, then they get better, just like in a campaign. But you're not going to see that. So any of the cool things you might have been able to use the Exilus app for, that it was being leveraged for, you weren't seeing in any one-off game. It was just, it almost got in the way. And it didn't have any, I mean, it was the very cool looking models, very high quality. It was all not pre-painted, plastic models, so you had to put them together, you had to paint them yourself. But they looked very cool. But the world wasn't really, it was kind of like an alternative, sort of a Dark Ages-y kind of thing. Not Dark Ages, but Middle Ages. And it really didn't speak to me. So there was nothing there for me. So when I heard about Golem Arcana, I was like, okay, another one of these computer things. I'm sure Russ will love it, but right off the bat, immediately with that first demo, you get to see some of the really cool things that are being done. So what are those cool things that are being done? We've already talked a lot about a lot of them. So the heating up of your weapons, or the expansion, the elevation of the cost for your actions, the cooldown element. The mana is really cool once you figure out what's going on. There's a lot that's going on right off the bat, and you're seeing that they've really leveraged this system, this idea that they have digitally enhanced a miniatures war game, and they really have. So I really, really liked it. I think the models are really unique. I think the world they've created is really unique. I think the pre-painted, like most pre-painted for me, I would have to touch them up myself. Like every pre-paint other than X-Wing that I've ever owned, I've touched up on my own. The bigger the model, the less I feel like it needs to be touched up. So the Jigara Colossus itself is pretty amazing looking. The little 15, and they are 15 millimeter guys. I checked, not 6 millimeter. The little 15 millimeter guys, not so much. They look like they're wearing wife beaters, like Russ said. They look like they're wearing khakis, wife beaters, and Viking helmets is what they look like. So it's a very intriguing look.
It's a style,
It is. I would say the art direction is much more intriguing to me than the model execution at this point. But I really like the way the game system plays. I think it's very cool. They went like sort of mech warrior-y, where you don't have the factions don't have their own golems. There are these codexes that are used to create the golems, and you've got like the Durrani codex is stone and gems and metals, and you've got the Uragal codex, which is flesh and bone, and you've got factions, and the factions tend to use specific types of codexes. So each faction will choose one or two of the 4 primary codexes that have already been revealed. And that's the blood and, like I said, bone and earth and trees and stuff, and then the stone. And I think that's really cool because you're not going to be like, oh, that's one of those stone guys, so I automatically know what faction you're from. You're going to have it. Not only does it make it cool, but it also expands the universe. It makes things a little bit more interesting. And it makes the fact that you have these different factions, there's more variety within each faction, so it actually expands the variety of forces you're going to face when you're playing the game, which I think is key. It makes it harder to track how many factions there are right now.
Right.
I'm not sure how many factions there are. I don't know if they've met Russ's rule of 4 or not yet, but I know there are 4 codexes, so I have to assume that there's 4 factions out there already. The aesthetic for the complete lack of any sort of 3D terrain, I feel is a weakness for me, but I think it's conscious. I think they're trying to they're trying to capture middle ground here. They're not trying to get miniature gamers alone to play their game. They're trying to get miniature gamers and board gamers and people who are like maybe just aging out of Disney Infinity and Skylanders and things like that, as Russ said. And I think they've done that very well. And so I think it's very, very well executed. I would say your average gamer is probably going to enjoy this game, I would say on a 3+, really. If you give it a chance, if you do a full game so that you can really immerse yourself in what that app is doing for you, I think it's going to be a 3+. And I think if you're a techno guy like Russ, it's going to be +1 on that.
Yeah. Oh, nice rating. Well, I agree with you 100%. So you did a good job there, Craig, summarizing the difference between Excellus and this, so I won't bother with that. Teras, to your point, I think what's interesting about this and makes this easier to receive. So I was thinking about this a lot because Craig and I are planning, and we started out, Craig said, one of the critiques about this is going to be, do you really need the miniatures? Can't you just play on the iPad?
Right.
And sure, but one thing that's interesting is, like, for example, you can play 40K on Vassal, right? On software online. You can play War Machine on Vassal, and it works just fine. But most of us prefer to play with miniatures, right? And I was also thinking about this. With War Room now, for War Machine, which most of us agree, something like War Room is really very beneficial. I have all my cards on there. I actually record the damage you do to my guy. So I actually sit there. I play War Machine now, and I have a tablet or an iPhone with me. And when you roll the dice and you say I do 5 points of damage to your fifth location, I actually pull my phone out and I put in a 5 to my fifth location. It's really just one more step to have it have rolled the hit roll for me. Now,
right.
I like rolling the dice. Don't get me wrong. I don't want it to replace it, but you still have that visceral bit. What makes this game work, I think, is the stylus. Because the stylus keeps you engaged with the models. You're not actually, if I had to go to the iPad and type everything in over there, pick my model, pick where it's going to go on the iPad touching it, and then come back over and move my model, and then go back over and pick his action, that would be like two different games. I think because I have the stylus and I'm touching physical models and physical locations on the board and just looking at the screen for a rules lookup or my current damage, that to me feels more like War Room, and it feels more like I'm engaged in the game while I play it. And I think that is really the magic of what keeps you with the models. And whoever thought about the fact that we want a stylus and we want that to be working should we get a raise? Because that was the magic move, I think. I like that. I think, Craig, you made a good point, too. The Skylanders Disney Infinity thing is an interesting analogy because if you think about it, both those games are doing very well right now, right? Skylanders is a huge hit. Disney Infinity's taken off. They're coming out with a new one this fall. What they did with that game was when you're actually playing Disney Infinity or Skylanders, the figures do nothing except they sit on a little pad and enables you to unlock that character. They don't actually move or are engaged in any way, but people collect them because it unlocks the character, and plus the models are cool. So if these models are cool enough to be cool, you're getting that, but oh, by the way, it's better than Infinity because they actually move around on the tabletop and actually have an interaction with each other. So I think people who grew up, and some of those people are now getting older, who grew up on Skylanders or Disney Infinity or things like that, this game calls out to them, and my daughters were immediately attracted to this game and thought it was awesome. I mean, they were sucked right in. I don't think I would have been quite as engaged with it if it hadn't been for them. And then once I started figuring out the depth of the mechanics, I was like, well, this is really actually quite good. Craig, you talked about the codexes. Bang on with that. I think it's really interesting. It does make it hard to count, but they do have right now with the next, if you count each of the three model sets have a different unique look and style and ability things. So there's 2 different sets of 3 in the core box, and then 2 additional expansions right now. So there are
those
4
are the
different
4
types.
codexes.
Yeah, so you could argue there's 4. There's a new one coming out now, so there's 5 of those. And then you mix it up. I think you got enough of variety to basically call it. Another neat trick they did was that while you can mix them up in certain factions, there are certain ancient ones who their power only works for certain codex types. So if you were to take only one particular type of codex, like the guys made of bone, there are synergies you can get there to make your list a little like almost like a theme list in War Machine, right?
Yeah,
you can do that by bringing in ancient ones that really support them. So there are some neat combos that way. I haven't played nearly enough yet to know which is, if there's more power in diversity or more power in synergies. But really interesting opportunities, and I already feel like there's enough variety. Like Craig and I played 2 games last night, and we still didn't use. We used just about half the figures I own, and I only own the stuff from GenCon, and it's the early stuff. So I think there's plenty to play with there. So I really like Craig, I'm going to agree with you. I think it's a 3+, and you're bang on. If you're a techno nerd like me and you like to see latest technology in with gaming and try it out, I think it's going to be +1 for those folks. Mm-hmm. So, Teras, what do you got? What do you think?
Okay, well, this game, when I heard about it, was repulsive to me, actually.
Repulsive?
All right.
Pretty strong.
Yeah. No, repulsive. Right? Yeah. I'm an old style gamer.
Yeah,
I like to have my miniatures on the table, painted, nice terrain. It's all about trying to get back to the table for me. I'm not a list builder. I'm not a meta guy. The game is the actual miniatures and the terrain. So I was really kind of down on the game. I would have stopped by the booth even despite that, because a lot of people are saying you got to give this a go, and I would have. I just didn't make it back, so that was one of the things. So I would like to. I should have stopped by. I regret not stopping by, but after we talked about it and after we did a little research, I'm digging it. I think that they could do a little bit more on the graphics, like I said before. They do have to balance it between activating the miniatures and having too much pull for the video, so they have to balance that, and which I think they've done. I really like the ability to be able to have complex mechanics in a game without massive rules for a player to remember. Mm-hmm. And I really dig that. I've thought many times that rules are just way too complex, and wouldn't it be better for something to be able to fix that, to be able to have these massive mechanics in a game, but for a player they just come intuitively into real life, just like it is to when you throw a ball. There's lots of mechanics when you throw a ball, but it all comes to play. And I think they've kind of done that, and I give them kudos for that. And then the solo play, that's a big thing for me. I think that's pretty huge thing. We're often thrown into a new town or a new city. We're traveling. Our buddies are sick with the flu, and you want to just have a game. And if they can supply that, that's a wonderful thing. So, I'm impressed and not repulsed anymore. So that's good. That's a big thing, because that would have it goes against my core gaming aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
But I think that you guys proved to me that it doesn't have to. So I think that that's really important. I'd probably give it a 4-up, just because that I'm still leery of it. But I with a 4-up with a easily moved up to the 3 at the time of gameplay. So I'm quite excited about the whole thing, and definitely want to give it a try.
Well, good. Well, Teras, that's obviously that's Golem Arcana. Did I get that right, Craig?
Yeah, Golem Arcana.
Arcana, sorry.
You half right.
All right.
Golem Arcana.
So, Teras, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy travels there to help us in the third chair here this episode. We really, really appreciate that. If folks want to follow up on you and see what's going on, where is the best place to do all that?
Sure. First of all, thank you. It's always a pleasure to hop on board with you guys. I always learn something and always have lots of fun. You find me at www.geeknationtours.com, or email me at headgeek@geeknationtours.com.
Awesome. Well, Teras, thanks so much again, and we look forward to traveling with you in the not-too-distant future. I'm sure we'll see you at Adepticon, if not sooner, right?
We will definitely see you then.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Teras.
Bye.
This edition of Ever Notice is brought to you by all of our fine patrons over at Patreon, including Robert Passmore, Matthew Trout, Bill Alexander, Heng Hik Yong, and Eric Knox. Thanks, guys, for helping us do what we do and for being part of the show. We really, really do appreciate it. And we couldn't do it without you guys because of the advertising we're pulling. So we're trying to make this, trying to respond to you guys. We hear you, a bunch of people are talking about ads, and, well, not a bunch, but every now and then we hear somebody say, oh, there's a lot of ads. So this is our way of trying to continue doing what we're doing without putting out all those ads. So here's our drive. We need I don't know, $80 more, I think, to drop another advertiser per show. So that's pretty huge for us. That's a big hit. So help us out. Jump in there. $2, $1, whatever you can afford, whatever you think this ridiculous 4-hour train wreck is worth. And we are really, really thankful. So thanks a lot for all of you. did you ever notice how hard it is to shake off something when it happens right in front of you? It's been kind of a rough year, as many of you may have gathered, and been in the hospital a lot. Knock on wood, not for me or my son or my wife, but my parents have been in the hospital a lot. Friends have been in the hospital a lot. And it's really been sort of a ragged year, and that really, I'm hoping, came to a culmination this week. I hope that there's nothing worse down the road here. There was an accident, and I was with a friend and a colleague who, just because of the intertwined nature of our lives and our relationship, I quite often take for granted. And he was hurt severely in this accident. There was a moment where it looked like it was really, going to be that kind of an accident. And thankfully, I mean, just through sheer luck and probably several miracles, they're going to be okay, which is great. But for that minute that I thought things were not going to be great, I have been seeing flashes of that minute, and as doctors' reports come in and things are looking better and better, I have to come to the conclusion, the understanding that I'm not living in a world where that minute reached its dark fulfillment. But for some reason, every day I have these. There are these moments where I think about how different this moment would be if things had not, it sounds weird, but gone as well as they did with that accident. And I can't imagine you'd go that last step and have that dark moment be fulfilled, and just trying to imagine as happens with millions of people around the world every day, and just trying to put myself in the position where I have these moments where I'm like, oh my God, what if? But if didn't materialize, so I have a breath where I can relax. It's exhausting, but at least that's the reality is that things are going to be okay. And I just think, what if it wouldn't be? What about all the people in the world who it's not okay for? And it really chokes me up. And it's been a rough week and a half now. But thank God that everything for me worked out. And coincidentally, this week, Extra Life really sort of blew out locally again. And I always forget, I'm all wrapped up in the play, I'm wrapped up in my deadlines, and then Extra Life comes bubbling up. And as you all know, Extra Life 2 years ago was kind of a pain in the butt, and getting that fulfilled. Now everything's lined up. We have that awesome portrait, and Paul did that great portrait, and the story is all at everything. Spartan has everything, so as soon as they get it up, I'll let you guys all know. But it took 2 years to get it up there. So I was thinking, what can I do this year? And I really, really, especially with what we've been going through all year long and what recently happened. I want to be able to help people who things are, they're more touch and go. Things are darker even. And so I thought it's a great intersection of what I just experienced, and thankfully it came through on the other side. It's a great intersection of that and Extra Life together. So I really wanted to put together something special, something that would be much closer to immediate. And so I started contacting people, and what I've come up with is Vincent Rossbond over at Wing Tassar Publishing / ZMOC Games, my publisher, the guy who has been ushering my fiction writing through its embryonic stages, has offered to publish a short story in ebook format, free ebook format, available through Wing Tassar Publishing for the Extra Life contest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for every increment of $10, so if you even give me 50 cents, your name goes into that raffle once. If you give me $100, it goes in 10 times. If you give me $400, it goes in 400 times. No, 40 times. I'm not good at math this morning.
And I will pick a name from that group again, like I have been doing over the last couple of years. The winner, back in the old days, you're going to work with me and we're going to create a short story, but it doesn't have to be in any particular IP. In fact, it probably shouldn't, so we don't get in trouble. But it's going to be any genre you want. I will even do a Twilight fanfic. Please don't do that to me. And Paul, the inestimable portrait artist, graphic designer, and cartographer, is going to create a portrait of you in character. And or this is my big thing this year. See, it doesn't have to be you. It can be anybody. So if you win, we can work together to create a short story featuring your child, your son or your daughter or your spouse. And Paul is going to do an awesome portrait of them. Not only that, but that portrait will then also be incorporated into the cover of the ebook. So, and that ebook's going to go up for free on the Wing Tassar website, available to anyone to download. So it's going to get as much exposure as we can all put together. So I'm really hoping that gets people excited. I'm really excited with that offer, with that opportunity. And I'm also thinking, and I didn't know how to write this, so I didn't write it in any of my fundraising letters, but people who are particularly generous, and I let you decide what that means. I don't want to put any sort of dollar value on it, but a particularly generous donor who would like to have more than one character be central to the story, up to 4. I mean, I can't do, a miracle, but that's for the Children's Miracle Network. But I could do that, and Paul could do a portrait of all 4 of those people together as characters, and I think it would be really cool. And I'm finding it cathartic because I'm trying to find a way that I can kind of give back to the universe for what I see as this little miracle that well, it wasn't, it was little because, well, anyway, it was a huge thing, but just this, my chance to sort of give back to the universe and offer what I have available to try to make things better for other people. So please give that a chance, give it a shot, give it a thought. Extra Life, if you wanted to check it out, you can just go to extra-life.org. You can search for me. I am me, Craig Gallant. I'm also on Team Game Salute, if you want to look up Team Game Salute. And I highly recommend you do this if you're at all moved, join Extra Life and raise money for a children's hospital near you. That's awesome too. You could do both, but seriously, this is an amazing opportunity. Gamers from around the world coming together, using technology to get this money immediately in its entirety. No percentage of this money, of your donation, goes to, paying somebody to do something for the charity. This charity is all electronic. Your money goes directly to the Children's Hospital. In my case, the Boston's Children's Hospital. This has been so great with my family over the years, and literally saved the lives of several children that I know and love. But if you have a hospital near you, join and throw your support behind them. And that's just, nobody loses here. That's the great thing. And some people can get all, competitive and talk trash, and that's fine if that's your thing. The key is it's all for a good cause. So go ahead and check out that Extra Life webpage. And if my little thing, if you just want to help kids, that's awesome. But if my little offer spurs you to anything, that's awesome too. And just thank you for listening. And that's all I've got to say for this topic. So thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Imagine being a hero. Imagine fighting the bad guys, saving the world, all that good stuff. Now imagine fighting an enemy you can't see or touch. Extra life, play games, heal kids.